This episode of Long Walk Short Drink is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/LWSD. Audible has over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Once again, that's www.audibletrial.com/LWSD.
I take my t-shirt collection very seriously, like Ash can attest to it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there is nothing more powerful than a really good t-shirt that somebody can connect with.
You fell?
Yeah, Phil!
Holy fuck.
Oh, man. Our whole 0 viewers are going to be laughing their ass off watching us.
I hear you. You hear me?
Oh, I hear you. Hey, man, sorry I dozed there for a second.
I was hoping it was something more exciting.
Oh, shit, no. Jesus, my life is not exciting.
Well, let's not forget episode, 2 or 3? You come up a little delayed.
Oh, yeah. Sex crotch.
That's what I always
Sex
assume.
crotch. Yep. Oh, no, but I am sweaty. It's like all the other after effects of that. Like, Jesus, who sweats while they nap?
Oh, I don't know. I
Man.
sweat while I sleep for sure.
Yeah. So how you doing, man?
Doing okay. I'm doing good.
Awesome.
How about you?
Awesome. Pretty good.
Nice. I saw some cool pictures. I didn't take a close look at them, but it was neat to see your wall on the Twitter feed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was, Jesus, 8:15. Yeah. Were you sitting in there for 15 minutes just waiting on listening to me snore probably?
Oh, no, I couldn't hear that. And it gave me just enough time to look over my dead zone notes, of which I had a lot. So I was glad.
Oh, good.
Time.
Good. That's exactly how I planned it. Ha 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 ha. So, yeah, no, things are, I had the last, it's the last set of questions, the last like assignment questions for the book club.
Yeah.
Were all written, and those, got those all ready. I went through, my chapter, summaries, just to refresh my memory, because I'm actually almost done with the book again, on the audiobook. So
How many times through does that make?
that'll be the third time I've listened to it on audio. And then I mean, I haven't really read it in the hardcover version. I haven't read it really.
Well, still, but 3 times through in the audio.
I realized actually, if we end up taking a, which welcome, by the way, episode 25. Can you believe that? 25
I know.
episodes.
It's a lot.
This is episode 25 of Long Walk Short Drink. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and start the live feed. You ready for that too?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that too. 3, 2, and 1. We are broadcasting. So that Twitter is going out now too. Everything's lighting up. Everything's lighting up. That Long Walk Short Drink is now broadcasting live. Welcome to episode 25 of Long Walk Short Drink. I am Palmer, broadcasting and recording live. Yeah, that still works in Dayton, Ohio.
And I'm Dave, podcasting and broadcasting live. Well, yeah, I see where the hiccup came.
Yeah.
When you're hearing this, it was live for me, and it is live now for you, though it was pre-recorded, unless you're listening on YouTube, on our YouTube channel right now, on
which
May
there's
31st.
they're not. I can guarantee they're not because it says 0 viewers.
I told you not to look at that.
I have to look at it. I have to. But I was just thinking, if we end up not recording next week, that would mean because I'm going to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
That is right. That is very exciting.
Oh, which is so awesome. He's on my bucket band list. Like, but that's the list of bands that I want to see before they die, not before I die.
I was going to ask you if you'd been to any of his shows before, but it sounds like not. Who else is on that list?
Well, U2 was on there, and I saw them, and BB King. I saw BB King.
Oh, you did? That's great.
Yeah. Man, that was a great show. Hey, babe. Oh, look at that.
Dun, dun, dun.
Look,
Oh, my
Ash brought me 6 pounds of PBR.
What a lady.
Yeah, that's what she does.
Look at that. I like that. It's just her thumb.
Yeah. Hi, honey.
Hi. Heather and I got 19,000 steps.
Word.
19,000 steps. All right. Go watch us on TV downstairs.
I did that.
Thanks for the beer. Watch the TV.
Huh?
Love you.
I love you. His watch, it still says 0 viewers. Thanks, babe. I think that joke is hilarious. I could write that 0 viewer joke all night long. Like,
That's
you know
she
what?
said?
Don't watch. Don't watch us.
Yeah.
Don't watch us. Don't come on the live feed because the 0 viewer joke is funnier.
Prime number.
It is a prime number. I actually found 2. I thought I had no beers. And then she left to go walk to go get her 19,000 steps. And I looked in the fridge and is that the right word I would use? There was 2 pounds of PBR still in the fridge. Must have been left over. Last time, can we talk about last time?
Sure.
Where I inadvertently drank 9 beers while we were recording.
9 pounds.
9 pounds of beer. I'm interested to listen to that episode because that episode has not aired as of yet. And I am interested to hear that, to see if you can hear me drinking 9 beers, because when we got off just in time. I'm also curious to see how drunk I am at the end, how drunk I sound at the end, because I got really drunk, like spinny drunk, like almost throw up drunk.
Oh, that doesn't even sound fun to me.
Yeah, no, luckily I fell asleep real quick, but for about 20 minutes, it was not fun at all. And I'm like, how did this eat? You're 35 years old, 36. Yeah, 36 years, 36. I'll be 37.
In a row?
Almost. Yeah.
It's the clerk
trying
joke.
to suck any dick on your way to the parking lot.
That's right.
Hey, get
come
back here.
Nicely done. Oh. I did. So I edited that one, and I cut out the times that you said it, just because I felt they could go. I didn't catch on as the guy on the other side of the conversation that you were so drunk. So I thought, I don't know. So I took it out of the edit, though. Of course, everything warts and all is always on the YouTube. Live streams and the archives.
I like it kind of just being like an Easter egg, in that case, but maybe we can just like beep out when I say 9 beers, like I drank. Well,
no, I like it as a retrospective thing, because if you're hearing this on the podcast and you want to hear what it sounded like that when Palmer, because there were a few times towards the end where you just thought, you're like, oh god, I'm so drunk.
I was just so drunk.
Yeah, no, I don't
Ash
think you'd be the wiser.
Even Ash was just like, babe, I've never seen you like that. It's like, I know, I don't like to get like that.
Did you? I was just to finish the thought of any listeners hearing this in the podcast. You could check out the unedited video archive on our YouTube page. Just go to YouTube and search for Long Walk Short Drink and subscribe. There's a playlist called Live Streams where you can also tune in live when we record, usually Wednesdays, and watch it unfold live. And then after that, it goes into the archive there. But those are always unedited because it's pretty automated. So you can catch all the all the stuff that is deemed to.
It's like an ultimate trade-off because like you get everything, like everything that's said, you know,
right? But you
don't get any. You don't get any of the polish that Moto and you put on, you know, like make it sound fun and like all the that's what she said, you know, and like keep all that stuff.
Keep it lively, keep it moving. Yeah. So the last two that I edited, 30 or 22, which is the revenge show, and 24, which is the one we were talking about where you got really drunk.
Yeah.
40 minutes came out of the revenge show.
Wow.
Where there was also a lot of drinking. And I think about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes came out of the other one, which is, it's hard to say what it is. A lot of times for me, as stuff I seize upon is just, you know, cross talking that happens on the internet from the internet lag where we're starting sentences over again and stuff. But,
right.
But yeah, so I rarely make a lot of content judgments like that, but sometimes I do if I feel like it'll benefit the whole thing overall. But so what are some of those other that bucket list? That's an exciting idea to me.
I'm trying to think. I mean,
you got some good ones on there.
Yeah. You know, I guess that would pretty much be it. I mean, those are the ones that like jump to the top of my head, but there's always bands that if the opportunity were to come up, like, I'm not even a huge fan of theirs, but the Pixies came through Columbus, and while I'm not a huge Pixie fan, I know they're like hugely influential, and they influenced a ton of bands that I do like.
Yeah,
and they also like were hugely influential to David Fincher, who used their song like at the end of Fight Club in the last scene of Fight Club. And like that movie has a huge impact on my life. Like there's that movie affected, that's probably in my top 5 movies that affected me.
You mentioned these lists, and all I want to hear is the other entries. You're like, I don't actually have 5. I'm not Mr. J, or do you? Because I'm pretty sure Mr. J could rattle them off, though I haven't asked him on mic. Do you have some other company, at least maybe 3 others that spring to mind?
Of movies that I feel
or
like
in those top 5, yeah.
Fight Club, definitely. So 3 more besides that. V for Vendetta, I would say.
Whoa.
Pulp Fiction, definitely. Let me think here. Goonies. I mean, definitely. You know, you don't hear. I would not put. While I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, I wouldn't say that like helped shape who I am as a person. And while I love the Alien franchise, I don't think that helped. Like there's not a message in that movie that I help relate to.
Oh, that's interesting. That makes me want to dedicate shows to those movies.
Yeah. Well, I'm always up for adding more shows that we need to do to the list. You know,
just when we get around to it, you know.
Yeah. We'll get there eventually.
Top 5, volume 1. You know.
Yeah.
That's a good list, man.
Yeah.
I want to do a Fight Club show just because.
Oh, that would be so good.
I've never given that movie a great deal of time since the time it came out. And I would like to read the book, and I know it's a big movie for you. I talked about it with Pumps a lot at a certain time, in maybe like 2004 or so. I think he was watching it every day. Yeah, that's one that I seize upon. I'd love to. Especially it's fun when there's books attached, but obviously some movies like Goonies and Pulp Fiction, like you don't need a. Yeah, well,
right.
We talk a lot about books on this show that are made into movies, but certainly not a criteria for an amazing film.
Oh, absolutely not. And I mean, I could argue that there are probably more adaptations that are bad than the good ones we talk about.
That's very true.
Whereas there are, I feel like, a fair amount of good movies than there are really shit movies. Like even really shit movies start to become really good. The Room.
I haven't seen that. I've heard of it. Of course.
Neither have I. That would be a great like one for us to like do and review. Since neither of us have seen it.
That's a great idea. I'm very motivated to watch that. I thought for a second we should watch it together and do like a commentary, but it'd be better if we could probably watch it and think about it.
How about if we watched it and we did an episode where we talked about it, but then did a commentary after that?
Oh yeah.
Where we're just like,
I was thinking that.
Can you believe this shit? Or like, yeah.
Though in a way, I love your. We haven't done it a lot, but I think it's a great. I think it's a great idea. That idea that you can't talk about a movie longer than the movie itself.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think we should do that next time we talk about a movie. Set that timer. I think that's more fun in a way than being trapped to the scene. Plus, it'd be hard to synchronize with our location.
Oh sure, absolutely.
A lot of our early shows though were those kind of dedicated to a movie. Like, and it's been a while since we did that, and that's a very fun thing. Of course, the books is the same, but it's different.
Well, and all the way, here's the long walk for the short drink, all the way back to the original point that I was trying to make. If we end up taking next week off from recording, that will give me more time to watch the adaptations of The Dead Zone.
Oh yeah, likewise. But the next show, whenever it is, we'll talk about basically the last
part of the book,
and then part of the book.
Yeah. But I feel like to get through the television show, which I should check and see how many seasons that is. But to get through all the seasons of the television show and the movie,
a lot. You don't have to do all that. Just watch like the pilot, if anything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll see. Let's see how many seasons.
Pilot was the
pilot. You know those shows they put on TV?
I don't watch TV.
Yeah, but you know there is this invention called television, and on this,
you're so close.
I had so much. I had too much cake.
That was pretty good though.
I have never had I have never been spot. Obviously, I mean I listened to, it's part of my je ne sais quoi of like. I almost know, I almost know the quotes, I almost get it right.
That's,
I know it just, but it fits into my whole, when we talked about this before, I know just enough about something to have a conversation about it, but not be an expert in it, you know? And it's the same with my commitment to movie, Double D is Double D? Yeah, Double D is got a fantastic memory for quotes on movies, and I'm always the one that's what's that from? What's that from? You know?
Yeah, I do that a little bit.
So,
does he want to talk to us on the air? Someday we should get this man on mic.
Yeah, we got to we got to do the Disney. So let's get we'll do a little tease here, but we got to be careful because the last part of the book is going to, and we'll start to get into this a little bit today when we talk about the third part of the book. But the last part of the book really deals with I want to be able to discuss some correlations to the politics that are occurring in the book to current politics.
Mm.
And I would love Twinkie to be a part of that conversation. However, I do not want to put him in an awkward position.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that
because of that conversation. So, that's one thing to consider. That so
maybe the
because I also
We could talk,
What's-
or maybe
oh,
one
yeah.
of the summation ones, because he's one of the folks I know that's been going through the book club with us.
Right. So, and to be fair to the show, I also want to not have to stifle that conversation if it goes. I know it's going to go in that direction mainly because I'm going to steer it in that direction.
Oh man, and today too, like
yeah,
this current chunk.
Absolutely. So, there's it's just something to consider. I just want to take that in.
That's a good idea.
Too.
I hadn't thought about that. I think that's probably important for all of us.
I think though we should do the Disney episode sooner rather than later. And I also think oh hey,
sorry, I want to keep you. She doesn't know.
It's the bride.
She doesn't know that it's live broadcast. If you want to get a fleeting ghost-like glimpse of the bride, you have to go to watch the YouTube archive of number 25.
Yeah. So there's what was I saying?
I'm sorry. Yeah, she's been creeping over my shoulder. You know, when I was out here catching up on my notes and stuff when you dozed off, she was she was just like doing a dance and flicking me off like Paul Rudd or something and role model.
Oh, that's awesome.
These shoes. Okay, sorry. Do you have any idea what you were talking about before that?
Oh no. So I was saying we should I would love to do the Disney episode with them mainly. But we should do that sooner rather than later.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You'll see Stan the Man, right, for Tom Petty.
Oh yeah, I'm going out with Stan the Man and his beautiful wife, and Ash and I are all going to Tom Petty. So it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait for that. It's gonna be so great. So
I mean, if you're gonna not be able to record or to get to go to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers for the first time in your life, it's pretty cool. Alternative.
It's a good.
God
reason.
damn. Yeah. So, really good. Really good. Really, as I was hearing myself on 23, I've never quite gotten into them, but I always like the idea of it. And I know there's that great documentary on Netflix, which it might be a good
4+ hours. Like, it's amazing the amount of artists he has worked with.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, just the Traveling Wilburys.
Fuck yeah!
I think that's the name of his band.
Yes, sir.
And it's
Moto is especially a fan of that band. Like, Moto basically calls the Traveling Wilburys Steve with famous people.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Like,
yeah,
because it's like George Harrison and like Roy Orbison and him and is
Bob
Eric
Dylan.
Clapton in it?
No,
Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan. Yeah. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's like all these amazing artists who just enjoyed recording together and was like, we should make an album. And that's what they did.
And Jeff Lynne, who Jeff Lynne.
Jeff Lynne, yeah.
He did a lot of work with George Harrison, and he's the guy that wrote and sang welcome to the human race. I can't think of how it goes. Yeah. It's a famous song, but I can't think of the rest of it. But Moto's a big fan of the documentary about Jeff Lynne, and then also he showed me the documentary that came out a few years ago about the Traveling Wilburys, and he says it's Steve with famous people because a lot of it is shot just on VHS, and so for listeners to our podcast, myself and various other cabin kids, see episode 1, had a band called Steve, and so it was. We have a documentary about ourselves because that's what I do.
And now that's got to get on the YouTube page. Like,
oh man. I would like. Yeah, that's the thing. As I've been archiving these things digitally over the last few years, I realize like, even with the Crow or whatever, the Crow documentary, it's like, oh man, at this point, I would love to share it. And I doubt like the Crow people would come after me like they did then. But I don't want to embarrass like the people who I knew in high school and don't know now that would be like, exposing them for being part of the project.
I think we should still share the Steve documentary.
I think Steve, we could get sign off on from various guys. One of the things I'm excited to do is we did a DVD commentary
For the Steve documentary?
Yeah.
I think, isn't there something funny with Logan on that where he's just like it's almost like a JCVD
actually
moment where he's like, well, what do I talk about?
No, what happened with Logan is Logan probably had that 9 pounds of beer, and he had, it was right before, I don't want to reveal more than he wants to know about what he does for a living, but it was right before he made that change. And I don't know if he was nervous about it or whatever, if this was a bit of a last hurrah of sorts. But yeah, somehow all of the members of that band were together. When we were making music together, we were in our early 20s, like 21 or so. And for the most part, we were spread across the country, but from the same place. So we would try to make music when we come back on breaks. So unlike most people start a band in high school, we started a band after high school when we couldn't spend time together. But then one of the ways in which
painting houses and eating sandwiches.
Exactly. Oh my God. That's some of the magic. This is what I'm getting towards with this commentary. So just, I mean, for people who aren't familiar, the way that we were able to kind of get together was to do so at the Cable Access Center where I worked. So we could come to that space, we could rehearse there or whatever. But the only stipulations, this is also where we shot, where Palmer and I did our show Palmer's Picks and Mine to Philip back in the day, and in the early 2000s in 1999. The only stipulation there is that you couldn't make money and you had to provide the station programming. Mm-hmm. So that was no problem for someone who was growing accustomed to making documentaries about himself and the friends he had and their creative endeavors. So there was actually at that time one other person working there other than me. And so at times I would just rehearse the band, and during the last hour of his shift or whatever, or maybe he'd stay after off the clock to sort of film us interacting with each other. And so this was in the summer of 2000, and then we were recording an album. So there was some recording of that. And then we got together when that album was finished in the fall for winter break and played a few shows and stuff. And then that was kind of it. But we had tons of hours of footage of documenting almost the entire existence of the quote unquote band. And we were not exactly contractually obliged, but it was a nice, convenient excuse that we were supposed to provide quote unquote programming for the station.
Right.
So, in 2004, when I moved back to Ohio and was getting divorced and had a shit ton of free time on my hands, I took that footage and made it into a documentary that I really think is quite good. Granted, it's about people that no one cares about, but there's a story there of which I'm one of the villain, to be honest. It was interesting. If you watch it again, I have a very negative presence in the thing. Anyway, but so I made this thing, which is a practice I've come to repeat at times, and I'm working on one right now where I process my life through these bizarre documentaries. But
when's the I do want to know when the Long Walk Short Drink documentary starts filming.
Oh, I guess we're filming right now, right? It's going to be an all. Yeah,
you're going to have all this, all this footage, to archival footage to go through.
I hadn't
It's
thought
going to
about
be
that.
it's going to be like a 10-hour long documentary.
It's going to have to be. There's a lot to discuss.
The Ken Burns of Dave documentaries on the Long Walk Short Drink.
We have the most limited palette of visual. It's just different Palmer t-shirt, different Palmer t-shirt.
Yeah. And the beards.
Oh my God. Oh, so that was a very long walk. That bring it in for this very short drink, or I have a pint drink actually. But so yeah, I made this documentary, and this was about late 2004, early 2005. I was able to make DVDs at this time, which now I know we're onto Blu-ray and streaming and stuff, but whatever. And somehow all 5 guys in the band were together in my basement that I'd, just moved back into my parents' basement a year prior. And Larry, I was spending a lot of time with Larry at the time. He actually helped me a great deal with just making choices about what to include in the documentary.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's just get down a little rabbit hole there. But like I remember there's a scene in the documentary where I sing this song of mine that at the time I dedicated to who would later become my ex-wife.
Right.
And Larry's wife burst into tears when I like out loud burst into tears when we were watching raw footage of that, because I was thinking like, let's not include this. and he was like, he just kind of like motioned over to her, is like, well, you know, I think you got like, there's an emotional thread here, even though that relationship isn't followed in the movie. Anyway, so it was very fun to put that film together. It came out very nicely and was a nice exercise in storytelling for me, and a nice little snapshot of the band for all of us. But we found ourselves able to be in one place at one time and watch it. And Larry was super familiar with it and moderated the conversation. So there are six guys and Moto. 6 guys on mic and Moto in a room running sound. So he's not running it later. He's mixing it live, and we all had microphones. Right. And we're watching it together, and like there's certain guys that like there's little riffs like the sandwiches and the painting, and
yeah.
And Logan is just pounding beers, and at one point he's just like, I raise goats.
What?
Yeah, he was just
I
like,
raise goats.
He said that, I believe. And oh man, it's epic. The Roe was there, and the Roe and I were big fans of the commentary immediately after it's finishing recording. And we hit like stop, and we're like, holy shit, let's go listen to this. So there's a video feed as well. And that's what I was kind of getting towards as well, is I'd love to put up not only the Steve documentary, but like it's a 4:3, like it's not widescreen at all. It's like the old. And so is the commentary feed, which is like one of these, like a static image. So I want to put up the commentary with the thing, so that not only could you watch the movie, but you could watch us watch the movie and that bust would be balls and stuff. Woo!
That would be awesome.
Okay, fuck this. Let's talk Dead Zone.
You want to talk Dead Zone? Wait, before we go, I have an idea. So it's been 2 episodes that I've been trying to spit this out.
All right, try it. Go ahead.
But I have an idea for a new. Hang on. Not literally spit it out.
I don't know how you can. How come you can't just share it with us? Why you can't get a word in edgewise?
So I have this idea for this new promotion or whatever. So my and it's already come up in this conversation. So my t-shirts, right? Like,
oh, I like this.
Okay. So if there is a listener who, if you happen to have a t-shirt, if you send me a t-shirt, basically I'll wear it on an episode.
Oh, cool.
Of on us recording. So under 2 stipulations, it's got to fit and it's got to be cool, and it can't have like. So that means it can't be like, you can't like, I was just going to say like, you can't have a giant douche on the front of it, but then I'm like, no, I would wear that shirt. So I hope the first one is a giant douche t-shirt. No, but no like hate stuff or anything. Like, I'm not going to wear that. Yeah. I will just return to sender that stuff.
I'm not sure how long. Like Johnny fucking Smith.
Yeah, that's what I would do. But I also have requests for, and it's got to fit me. So if you just reach out to me at LWSD Palmer on Twitter, you can reach out to me there. You can send private messages on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that terrible? PM? I don't even know that. Yeah. So just send me a PM on Twitter at LWSD Palmer. I can get you the details and the size. I need like I'm a big guy. I need like a 4X. So, just consider those 2 things. On the other side too, I'm thinking about putting this out, like requests for t-shirts, because I'm not an artist, but I have great ideas for t-shirts, right?
Yeah, so
this is like my first idea for a t-shirt. So this t-shirt that I'm wearing right here, actually my dad and stepmom got me this for Christmas one year. It's Batman, and he's knocking out the Joker on it.
I know that image, yeah.
Yeah, and so, if you look, there's this cartoon right here, this little bubble right here, which that would have, like, if this was the Adam West Batman, it would have like kapow in there or something like that, right? So there's this street in Dayton called Keowee. It's like Keowee, Keowee, right? So once I saw the name of that street, I always thought it sounded like an onomatopoeia, like kapow.
Yeah.
And so I always pictured like Kiawi, like in one of those bubbles like that. So this is the idea of the shirt. So it's this image of Batman punching out the Joker, but it's one of the Wright brothers being punched out by Rudy the Flyer, which is the UD mascot, and the Wright brother, one of the Wright brothers, or like the Wright brothers getting in a fight with Rudy the Flyer. Anyways, they're getting in the fight, and when they make the punching gesture and that thing, it says Kiawi in it, and then underneath it says Dayton, Ohio.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's a lot to there, but if you want to, if you don't have anything going on and you happen to be the one person watching the live feed right now,
oh
yeah, we got one person. Hi out there, YouTube. No, it's not me. It's probably Ash.
That's nice.
Yeah. Like a fan. Like,
she
what can I say?
Anything.
I got a fangirl. Like, I got a fangirl. But if you got nothing else going on and just feel like designing a shirt that's really abstract and a joke for some fat dude that lives in Dayton,
we don't, if we had a website, that would be the pitch.
Fat dude that lives in Dayton.
No, starting with like, if you've got nothing going on.
Yeah.
Well, they can also reach out to the, we have an email address because I can imagine not everyone is on Twitter. So if you go to, or if you write to LWSD pod@gmail.com.
Oh yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work. So that was my new bit that I was thinking, like, just like, I mean, I will never get a t-shirt, but if I did get an awesome t-shirt, I would wear it. So because of course, so with much gratitude.
We should start a t-shirt segment where we are like, you can take pictures of, because you got to, as we've discussed with Mr. J once, or on the Mr. J episode, he wasn't on the call yet, but there's a great story behind all these t-shirts, and you've got a great collection. Yeah. It'd be fun to just even share somehow those shirts to help kind of inspire other shirts.
I take my t-shirt collection very seriously. Like Ash can attest to it. Like,
yeah,
and she can witness like the power. I mean, there is nothing more powerful than a really good t-shirt that somebody can connect with, because it is such a great conversation starter, because so many strangers, it's endless. So many strangers, like even the bride can tell you, when we were out there visiting last summer, we went to Mall of America to just like look around because it's Mall of America.
Yeah.
And I was wearing my Walter Sobchak t-shirt that says Market Zero on it. Right. And it's got him like doing the point, and he's like screaming, and it says Market Zero. And we're just walking down the middle of the mall, just like catching up and talking, and this dude just like pops out of the store, and he's like, "Hey, that is an amazing t-shirt." And like, and I mean, it was a great, he used it as a segue to a sales pitch, but I mean, it's still like,
but that was a genuine connection with the shirt.
Yeah. But I mean, but there's been tons of times that people have like just come up and started to talk to me because of a t-shirt that I was wearing. So, never underestimate the power of a really well-designed t-shirt.
And the kind of in-joke of them are fun. Like the bride can attest also to wearing a few t-shirts that I think she has waited years for someone to acknowledge. And I am so disappointed in the world that they haven't. So she has a Lost t-shirt that's the Dharma logo.
Right.
But nothing else. Like it doesn't say Lost. It's just the Dharma logo. And I don't think anyone has ever like said anything about it.
Oh, that's so, and I know that feeling because I have those t-shirts too. That's frustrating. Like,
yeah. And another one she's got is, do you know the show Orphan Black? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of that show, and actually I've like, you guys highly recommend, like, that's, you guys are where I've heard of that show.
Oh yeah. That show is excellent. Really amazing. And actually anyone, so I'm not a fan of sci-fi just for sci-fi's sake. Like that has to be like, oh, it's sci-fi, but, and then I'll listen.
Right.
And that's a show that falls into that category. But I've never seen this show before. It's about mostly clones, but it's so much more than that. It's so funny. It's so heartfelt. It's a really fantastic show. At one point, one of the clones runs for mayor, I think.
Yeah.
And so the bride has a shirt that's the shirt in the show that they wear, like the t-shirt for so-and-so for mayor, like elect Allison Hendricks for mayor. So you have to know the show to recognize the t-shirt, but it's a very like recognizable color and all that. Still nobody. And we're just like, come on, people. But someday when somebody does recognize it, like you'll know that that is a quality human in your tribe. You know?
Well, and there is nothing more vindicating though when that shirt finally is recognized by a person. That's just like, it's the same thing with my Dark Tower tattoo. Like,
oh yeah,
I went easily years. And it was like the first 3 people to realize it was a Dark Tower tattoo all happened within 3 months.
Really?
All within like this span where I was like, you got to be shitting me. Like, yes, that's a Dark Tower tattoo. Like, you're the 3rd person to point it out like in the last month. And I've had it for 3 years now. Like, yeah, it's Dark Tower. There's nothing more vindicating though when that finally happens. So just like hold strong. And like, that's not, it's like, it is a bummer when nobody does like find the same like value in it that you do, but that shouldn't deter you from wearing it. Like you still feel like it still should always go back to like you wear it because you find a personal connection to the shirt. So,
and I found that's an interesting thing that I think maybe we touched on, but maybe we haven't. I know we need to get to the book club and stuff too, so I don't want to belabor the point, but it's interesting about how geek culture has become kind of mainstream and the internet has allowed people to connect, that you don't get to have as much of a sense of like having these personal things that people don't know about. I don't know, like as somebody who's always would have detailed knowledge rather than overview knowledge, like you used to have to get that detailed knowledge from like buying whatever Starlog magazine and shit.
Yeah.
So it was
and
harder
like
to
watching
come by.
commentaries and like all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at that, especially with that being the currency, then people knowing things from those sources was really meaningful. And now, I don't know, it just seems a bit different. I don't know where I'm going with that. So I might cut it out, but
you can't
turn that boat around.
turn the ship around.
I heard somebody talk about this recently, this idea of fandom being different now and it being harder to be a fan in some ways, or
I feel a pressure, like I feel like there is this unspoken pressure that you are constantly challenged as a fan by other fans. Like, why can't you just and you have to be, so that causes then the need to know everything and to be the best at being a fan of something. And then it just becomes an obsession. Then there's just a group of people where it's an obsession that just makes it not fun. Then it ends up becoming not fun for other fans, or almost intimidating to enter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, actually that makes a lot of sense. That is where I was trying to get to. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. There are definite things that I have thought about wanting to be a part of, that the people who are fans of that intimidate me to the point that it has kept me from joining them.
Oh, that sucks.
You know, like, just because and not in the sense that maybe I'm doing that unfairly, because the example that I'm thinking of is like, is Doctor Who, right?
The Bride got into that recently.
Yeah, which has a huge fan base, right? It's not the fans that intimidate me. It's the fact that if you want to be considered a huge fan, that is a gigantic universe to just start now. You know what I mean? Like And then the other side of it is I'm a completist, and there are actual episodes of Doctor Who that are lost forever that you'll never.
Oh,
that nobody will like.
That's tough.
There's like
I understand.
There's like a handful of episodes that there's like one of them. There's a Polaroid with a television in the background, and that episode is on, and that's the only frame of that episode that's known to exist.
Oh my God.
And I'm just like, as soon as I read that, I'm just like, I will never be a Doctor Who fan. Like, I'll never.
Oh, this is
Isn't
why we're
that terrible?
soulmates. No, it's not terrible. It's perfectly understandable.
I'm like, I will never watch one episode of that show. If there's one episode that I'll never be able to see, it's not worth watching any of them. Like,
I don't know. That's probably debatable, but you're talking to a guy that understands that, certainly.
yeah. So,
you know what's funny too is the bride is similarly, she has those kind of berries, but she doesn't want to finish things. So like one of her favorite television shows of all time is Alias. She's never seen the last episode because she doesn't want it to be over.
That's my old man was like that.
Really?
Yeah.
About
what? Stephen King books, actually.
What? You mean finishing them? Or
yeah, he would read them all. He would get up to the last, I don't know, maybe like 30 to 50 pages, and then take like 3 months to read them because he doesn't want it to end.
Oh, wow.
And then when he would switch to audiobooks, like he would just like listen for like 5 minutes at a time and then stop it just because he didn't want it. Like he didn't want it to end. Like he liked it too much.
I didn't realize he was that into it.
Yeah. And, like Under the Dome is a great example. He did that where he read Under the Dome and then spent like 3 months getting through the last, little bit of the book. And finally, like I was talking to him, he's like, I finished that book finally. And I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, what do you think? He's like, man, I read the last page and threw it across the truck. I'm like, why? It was like, it had really good resolution. Like he did a great job of like summing up, like tying everything up. And he's like, yeah, that's why I threw it across the truck, because it was over. Like my father was just like a child. He just like threw tantrums like that. Like, and I do too. And it makes me ashamed when I do it, but that's where I get it from.
Both of those things are awesome. That level of investment in anything is enviable.
Yeah.
That's really great. Oh, you shouldn't feel bad about that.
I feel bad that I throw tantrums like a child. That's what I feel bad about. Like, not that I invest myself as like in these.
Oh, sure.
Things,
I can relate to that.
I have never though subscribed to that where it's like, I'm just going to like postpone. I could not imagine that not watching. If Alias is her favorite show and never watching the last episode, no way. That makes my skin crawl, the idea of that right now, like knowing that she's 60 minutes away from having the whole story.
Oh,
that's
you know interesting. What I mean? But there's sometimes where like this is a weird connection. We're right on the precipice of such a great segue with the Stephen King book, so I kind of want to say that. But I'll just say quickly, I love the show Mad About You. I get into it in great detail. However, I won't hear the last episode of that show. Fucking sucks and ruins this is what happens to these people the rest of their lives, and some of it is the last thing you would want to have happen. And I'm just like, I wish that didn't even exist in my mind.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not.
I'm sure there are fans.
But
no, but I'm sure there are fans of any friend. Like we're both Lost fans.
Mm-hmm.
I am a huge fan of the finale of Lost. I think that they wrapped it up. They did a beautiful job of wrapping up the show. And if you do just even a minimum amount of research, like I think where a lot of people don't like the finale is they just don't get it. And a lot of it is left up to interpretation, but there are pieces to get about that finale that are really hard to get. And so if you just do a minimum amount of research, to get those things, like it makes that finale beautiful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I know there are fans who know all of those things and still are like, that was such a slap in the face. Sopranos fans who hate the last episode of Sopranos, like that's a very polarizing finale.
Oh, right. I haven't seen that one. I think about it, taking that show on. It's like that thing where it's like, it's a big commitment and you have to be ready to dive in.
Yeah. Saint Elsewhere. Do you remember Saint Elsewhere?
I remember the show existing, but I never watched it.
It was like a predecessor to like ER, right? Like
Sure,
Howie Mandel was on that show. It was like
that's right.
It was like a hospital dramedy show, right? That just like that show's finale ended with a pan out of the hospital into that pans out and it's a snow globe. Like that hospital is inside a snow globe and the entire show took place in the mind of an autistic boy.
Oh my God.
Looking at the snow globe.
Horrendous.
Like, isn't that a fucking like that? Like, I got to make sure that's the right show. Hang on. Because I don't want to get lambasted for, let's see here.
Yeah, the internet police is very up on Saint Elsewhere. And we are here to tell you you're fucking wrong.
Saint Elsewhere ending. The final and controversial ending to the popular 80s drama Saint Elsewhere. The most common interpretation of the scene is that the entire series events in the series Saint Elsewhere have been a product of Tommy Westfall's imagination, with elements of the above scene used as its own evidence. And then they have the scene on YouTube. So let me, we should probably.
Yeah, I'm curious now.
Copy. All right. So yeah, let's go back. So, I mean, this thing is, 1 minute and 19 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, I'm at 0.
So I'm at 0 too. So, all right. So let's just do this on 3, 2. Oh wait, no, we don't count. It's on 3, right?
That's the Palmer Springs way.
And 3.
Careful with that, son.
Oh, that actor.
Remember I told you that? I don't understand this autism thing, Pop.
Oh my God.
Here's my son. I talk to him. I don't even know if he can hear me. 'Cause he sits there all day long in his own world, staring at that toy. What's he thinking about? All right, come on, son. Let's go wash our hands, all right? It's all right.
Oh, so not a pan out, it's a pan in onto the snow globe.
Oh no. Oh, I recognize this theme song. I think this is Dave Grusin of Fabulous Baker Boys fame.
Whoa. Awesome. And then that's the hospital that the whole show whole show takes place in.
Now, is that actor in the show, the dad there?
No.
Oh
no.
He's
like
he's great, that guy.
Like it's literally a pullout of it's a break from the reality of the show. Like it. So if you were a fan of that show that had followed that show, like, wouldn't that piss you the fuck off? Like,
yeah, like it validates the whole thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know there's polarizing endings to shows. But at the same time, though, I would much rather know. Like my brain would eat me alive, wondering. I have to know it all. I have to know the story.
Sorry, the bride's doing the middle finger dance. I was trying to get her to flash me.
Oh,
we're talking about the last episode of Alias.
I thought you were making the flashing gesture. I was wondering if
we're not actually talking about it. We're talking about why you haven't watched it. That's all right. Okay. You ever going to watch it? I said, are you ever going to watch it? And she goes, yeah, I'm going to watch it. Shut up.
She's wearing a strap shirt.
Oh, yeah, she is. You know, that reminded me of, let me just ask you a question and see if you remember the answer. You fell?
Yeah, Phil.
Thank you. I need to hear you say that. Something came up earlier in the conversation, and I was like, I wonder if he remembers that. So for our listeners who don't instantly recognize
did I do it right? Did I do that
did it
right?
perfectly.
Okay.
Perfectly. That is from Phenomenon.
Yep.
1996 movie, I think, with John Travolta. I don't know how
I don't know why it's so funny, but Jesus.
it is so funny because
Yeah, Phil.
if anyone has seen that movie, we might need to watch the trailer because he John Travolta. Holy fuck!
Oh man, our whole 0 viewers are gonna be laughing their ass off watching us.
Oh Jesus, that's like the most inside of inside jokes, but everyone can be a part of it if they watch Phenomenon. Oh,
Yeah,
so that in that movie, like John Travolta sees some kind of like, I don't know, is it an alien or something? Maybe you don't know in the movie.
Oh.
A flash from the sky, and he falls over, and then he starts to have these powers, which oddly enough ties into our book club. I don't remember what his powers are exactly. Can you find that trailer?
Yeah, I can find the Phenomenon trailer. I'm looking for the exact scene though where he says, "Yeah, I fell."
Now I just want to know what the movie's about. I kind of don't remember.
So I can give you a synopsis of the movie. He is kind of like a Lenny from Of Mice and Men,
but he's not like slow.
he is kind of a little slow, like just kind of like he's an average Joe, but he is a little bit.
Okay. And
he's outside of the local bar and has looks up in the sky and a flash comes out of the sky and flashes through him. And that's when he goes back in the bar to talk about what just happened. But anyways, he ends up his IQ exponentially increases throughout the rest of the movie. To the point that he gains super sensory skills. Because the theory is that he taps into a higher level of brain use because of this increase in his intelligence. Let me see here.
I found the trailer actually. I put it in the sheet. I'm curious. I feel like the still of it is Forrest Whitaker, and I think he's asking the question.
Wait, you fell?
Yeah,
Phil!
Knock me on my ass.
Knock me on my ass.
That's. Do you have it? Let's watch it. Sorry, just to entertain my nonsense here. Okay, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, so on 3, on the Palmer's picks 3. 3. Oh, it's squished.
It is squished.
That's weird. Oh, Touchstone.
Man, Touchstone. Do they make shit anymore?
I don't think so.
I don't think they do either. There's all these. I have sensory memory of film company logos.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, circumcised what?
Oh, dick joke.
Drinking, just great. This is like Travolta in his comeback heyday.
Yeah.
Oh, he's toasting the town clock.
Yeah.
Ooh. Now he's ooh,
Here
there's
comes.
a flash.
Oh. That light? There was a noise. Did you hear it?
The man's inebriated.
I'm not drunk. Can't sleep. Can you?
What's happening to you, George?
Lately, things have been so clear to me. Just understand quicker. I just can't stop feeding myself. I read three books a day.
Ever since the sighting.
Roger, it was a damn light.
Imagine doing what others only dream of.
Uma coisa para ficar melhor.
George,
He's no
you learned
Spanish.
the Portuguese language in 20 minutes?
Not all of it.
Experiencing what others can't understand.
And I'm trying to tell you that I think that there's an earthquake coming.
He's nice, isn't he?
Yeah, but he thinks he saw a UFO and he thinks he can predict earthquakes.
We can predict shit.
Oh.
And believing what you never thought possible.
That Robert Duvall, remember that?
It's a damn mistake is what
what it is. It was supposed to happen to someone smart, but it didn't happen to me.
You fell. Yeah, I fell. Dramatically.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
People have been doing astounding things we can't explain.
Can't they just look in his eyes and see who he is? Is it close enough?
You tell me.
It's pretty close.
What do you mean by genius?
He's basically off the chart. I don't think he's testable.
If you think that's something, you should see him move stuff with his brain.
Would you option?
Love me the rest of my life.
No. I'm gonna love you for the rest of mine.
Oh, Jesus. Man, I love Forrest Whitaker.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like
What is going on, George?
Jesus, Forrest Whitaker is an amazing actor.
I like a lot of those people now that I see them.
Yeah. All right, let me just do one quick search to see if I can find. So
the
just get that audio sample.
Yeah, I don't know how. So it's weird that we didn't even really meet until say 98 probably, or maybe possibly late 97. And that movie came out in 96. So how we bonded over that weird reaction. So after the light hits him in the bar, like Travolta's saying, anybody see that weird light? and stuff. And then he said something about how it knocked him over, and Forrest Whitaker just goes, "You fell."
Yeah. And
then Travolta freaks out. He's like, "Yeah, I fell. Knocked me on my ass." He overreacts, I guess, is the thing, or maybe not. I don't know.
So Dave did have to explain this the first time, because I said something. I said I fell. I was telling a story, and I was like, and then I fell.
Oh, that's right. Remember now.
And Dave was, and then he says it like Forrest Whitaker. He's like, "You fell," and I was like, "Yeah, I fell." And that's what happened. And then he explained it to me.
Oh, okay. That's how it happened. That is very much like the scene in Pulp Fiction for me, where even in some of the early video pan and scan, like you don't quite see it, but it's just a funny thing that Travolta in that mid 90s period did, that like, so in Pulp Fiction, they're arguing, Eric Stoltz and John Travolta's characters, about where to find, the Mia character is overdosing and they need to inject her with adrenaline. And Eric Stoltz is like, why'd you come to my house and all this? And Travolta's like, "You got the shot. Where's your, find the black medical book." And at one point, like Rosanna Arquette's chiming in, and Stoltz is like, "I don't know. Stop bothering me." And then he's like shouting off to Travolta. He's like, what did he ask him? I can't remember what it was. Stoltz asked to shout something, and Travolta's like, "I'm not fucking stopping you." And they're shouting back and forth, and it ends with Travolta being like, "Get the shot." He says it in this funny way to me. Like he throws his hand out and his face is all contorted. He's like, "Get the shot."
I love that, like the part 2 where he's like, "I need a big fat magic marker," and they're all standing there like, "What?" He's like, "A felt pen, anything." He's like,
fucking black
magic marker.
That's great too. He gets all wound up at some point. It's like, "I'm gonna fucking, if you don't stop talking to me." She starts screaming. So that's the level, like that's the.
Is she the
Travolta
one with all
I
the
found
shit
so
in her
funny.
face? No.
Oh,
she's my wife.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, man. It's that kind of thing where I just thought that was always such a strange and funny reaction in phenomenon, so I introduced it into our lexicon. Well, I didn't think I was doing that at the time, but ever since then, anytime that intonation has remotely come up, like
anytime anybody has said "I fell," anytime falling has come up, that's what happened.
That's right. Oh, I'm so glad it's part of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, Phil, knock me on my ass.
Forrest Whitaker.
I can't find it. I'm gonna have to look through movie. Let me try one more thing.
Oh my God. I'm gonna have to. You know what's weird too about that preview is it takes me back to a time when I worked in a video store and used to have to play a tape that was all trailers, and so you'd see them over and over again.
Yep.
I saw that trailer so many times. Ooh.
Oh man, that is great. So good. She's the one with all the shit in her face, and then now we're matching movies because that's a totally different movie.
Oh, you know what's fun is I didn't know this till years later, of course. But you know I love that band, The Frames, and the guy from Once. It's his Irish band. That band started in 1992 was their first record. Now that's not one I like, but it existed, and the girl, and he was actually the last person that I think Chris Blackwell signed to Island Records, like U2's label back in the day, and Bob Marley. But so that was brand new at the time. And there's the other girl that's not Roseanne Arquette with all the shit in her face. The other girl is wearing a Frames t-shirt.
Oh, nice.
In Pulp Fiction. So that's a nice little.
That is a nice little nod there.
Yeah.
My favorite cover that you do is a Frame song.
Oh, really? Which one?
Finally.
Oh, that's such a favorite of mine. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's like you nail that cover.
Oh, my friend. That's so nice. We actually recorded that finally. Finally.
Finally. And we're done here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Long Walk Short Drink 25.
Fuck the book club. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I'll tweet that out maybe with this episode.
I remember what I lost earlier. I was getting ready to talk because it's Long Walk Short Drink 25. 25 first off. Like that's awesome. Who knew, right?
Yeah. It was the year I lost in my own life.
But we are coming up on, I love this little tidbit. One of the ideas that's being tossed around amongst the Long Walk Short Drink staff is that for the 30th show, just kind of doing like a clip show.
Oh yeah.
And I like the idea of us not hosting that show.
Whoa.
I like I mean, we already stroke our egos enough, like on this show, and stroke each other's egos enough. And like, and right now the friendship theme is playing from Bloodsport, like behind me. And like, you know what I mean? Like that's, that's already happening. And so like, and again, like I just like the idea. I mean, of course we could contribute like the quotes or whatever, the clips. But I like the idea of somebody like rolling those out, like kind of doing like a, I don't know, like maybe we can talk Double D into doing like a top 20 countdown, or you know what I mean,
or 20
like,
or 30 or 25 or whatever, something that makes sense.
Like, yeah, like
or
something
an odd
like
number,
that.
like
yeah,
7.
or an odd number, yeah, like some of just like the best segments or best discussions, and so like. You know, that it wouldn't take a large part of that person. They wouldn't have to do that live. They could just like record the like little bits that would go in between.
Yeah. So that'd be very fun.
That's something to consider. But that would mark like that would bypass. I love that you brought that up. That would be more episodes than we made of Palmer's Picks, which is the most of something that we made.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we did that for about a year. And actually, even though the show started in publishing in December, we started recording this in August, I think, of 2016.
Yep.
So we're not that far from like a 1-year anniversary, but all the same, that idea of the 30 is very, especially with the whole 30. Ooh.
Oh man. We're also coming up on a year. I'm going to bring this up and then we're going to want to do smoking stats.
Fuck yeah. Oh yeah. We're coming up on.
But we're coming up on a year of me not smoking.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So I could not, my smoking app won't, it like does this weird thing. So watch, when I push it, it like goes to open and then it closes.
Oh.
Like, I don't.
Is it just like a reboot thing? Like if you rebooted your phone or?
Yeah, let me try that. so that we can do smoking stats. But
Oh,
it's
that'd be
like
cool.
324 days of not smoking.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It occurred to me in the last one where we didn't do it, where we kind of bypassed some segments. I was like, "Ooh, I wonder if he's gonna have to restart his numbers." But then I was like, "No."
Oh,
But I was like, "That could happen."
It could. I mean, there's been even recently, there's been a couple times where I've, man, if there was a cigarette there, it would have been really hard for me to say no to it. So I'm glad it's not there. And I did have to qualify like this past weekend. Like I'm very careful about saying I'm tobacco and nicotine free for a year, smoking, because I still eat cake. So, but there's no
that's
like
not
tobacco
the same at all, really.
Yeah. No, not at all. So, no, I just restarted my phone and it still isn't going. So, but if I pop this open, I might be able to get. I can pop I can see that I have saved $1,657. I've not smoked 5,524 cigarettes. I haven't smoked for 324 days, 23 hours, and 35 minutes. And I've added 22 days back onto my life.
Oh, nice.
So that's crazy. Like, I'm coming up on 1 year, like, of not smoking. July 4th will be 1 year. So no smoking, none of that stuff. Things are good.
Good. That's awesome.
You know, that sound signature on my recording line looks like a penis.
Wait, it's horizontal, or wait, what?
Yeah, you know how, like, just the waveform while it's recording.
Oh, I don't see that. I have a LED thing on mine, so
okay.
I know what you mean, though.
It was very phallic. My dick's nickname in college also very phallic. It was a literal name, obviously. The very implies girth, so.
Ooh, girth. Why would you talk about that? It's from Friends.
Yeah.
Something I seized upon quite a bit as a kid, because I think I had to look up that word when I heard that on this show.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I was like, girth, what is that?
What does that have to do with anything?
And then his reaction was all the more like, oh, okay. She's like, because we talk about, there was like a list of things Rachel said, right? It's like, we talk about this, that, girth. And then Chandler's like, why would you talk about that?
Oh, that's awesome.
Whitest show ever, other than Silver Spoons, probably.
Yeah, probably.
But it's fun. Like, I would rip on The Bride sometimes, so she'd be watching them, especially because of her, interest in making sure everybody gets sort of equal representation in the world. But she's like, fuck you. This is a nice show. It is. It is a nice show, literally about friends. So,
White friends.
Yeah, white friends who have money enough to live in New York City.
Right now, I have you on 3 because you're in.
It's my fucking dream.
You're on 3 windows on my desktop right now.
I should really have better lighting.
With this picture, that makes 6.
That's a lot, boy. I'm sorry.
And what's funny is like they're all at different points of the broadcast, like with lag. So it's you're in 3 different positions in the photo. I just texted it to you.
Oh man, if only I could replicate that in other areas of my life.
Yeah. So
I'd be like Multiplicity.
Man, I like Pizza Steve.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like that was one of the inside jokes of like the band Steve?
I thought so.
That line, I like Pizza Steve, which is on YouTube. That scene is on YouTube.
The Multiplicity?
Like it.
Oh,
yeah. Like just that scene with the piece of pizza. But he calls him Steve in that.
I could probably tweet that scene, this episode, on the Twitter.
Yeah.
I'll tweet the origin of the Steve band name from the documentary, because I wasn't there for it. There are conflicting reports. I feel that that's part of it for me, the multiplicity, but maybe not.
Like, you feel like the names for the band Steve comes from that scene in Multiplicity?
At least in part, because some of what the other guys were saying is that they were giving the name out as though someone at a party would ask their name. So the question I first have to ask is, what party are these assholes at that someone's gonna ask their name?
Well, they look interesting enough that they get asked what their name is.
Or at least that they would be with together at somene's house who didn't know their name. You know what I mean? Like,
they all gave the name Steve.
That's what they say. Yeah.
Oh.
And who's they? I'm not super sure.
I know that story too. That sounds vaguely familiar too, but so does the multiplicity as the origin.
Yeah. So my guess is that is some of the joke of why that's that particular name. What's funny though too is the way that I met Jacko, who was one of the members of Steve, the founding member of Steve perhaps, but in a very dubious way. I met him through my only friend in kindergarten was Steve Thompson, someone else from Rittman whose parents were in the school system in various capacities, so much where I have such a distinct memory in life of being a middle school student, 6th grade. Now Steve Thompson's mom is my gym teacher. I, for some reason, had always called her Debbie.
Yeah.
So I remember this moment of like looking at her in gym class and saying like, Debbie? And she goes, Mrs. Thompson. It was so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Also, Steve Thompson is the reason I found out what sex was. Another story. So,
I remember that whole period too. Like, Steve just kind of kept coming up because it was around that same time the movie The Tao of Steve. Do you remember?
Oh, The Tao of
like,
Steve. Yes.
Like
oh
that.
Shit, that's literally the time, like 2000 with Donald. Fuck, what's that guy's name? Logue. Donald Logue.
Yeah,
is his name. Yeah, that's right. That's a great insight that I think is to me that has been in the lost for years. That's 100% right, because I saw that at the Cedar Lee Theater. That's back when I used to drive from Rittman to the Cedar Lee Theater with passes.
I remember Jackson making the case that all of us needed to go see this movie because it was about a guy who lived the life of Steve and like how fitting it was and like
right. And he was like this slacker guy, but he still got girls and stuff.
Yeah, and like and how I remember like you guys all kind of like for a very brief period when all this movie was discussed, like that's exactly what Steve is, and like like, so
that is so true. Because initially, the Steve thing, the band, we had. As previously discussed on the show, we would gather at quote unquote the cabin, and there would be people playing songs around the campfire, usually cover songs, and people would have their specialties. Like I played Pearl Jam songs and sang like Eddie Vedder, and Krams would play REM songs.
Yeah.
Singing more like Krams. That was kind of a thing of mine where I had an imitative voice where other people's was less, so a little more their own, which I was always a little envious of. Jackson would play Dylan songs. I always thought of the Row as Paul McCartney. So not that he would necessarily only play Paul McCartney songs, but that's always how I saw him. In part because I remembered him as a romantic. Like I remember playing soccer with him in middle school or earlier, and we'd be going to get on the bus or something, and he ran back to talk to a girl, which none of us did. So that started this whole thing of him in my mind as this romantic. So whenever we were given the chance on karaoke or something, the Row and I would always sing the duet "The Girl Is Mine" with Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson.
Oh, so awesome.
But so these guys and I were all friends. But then Logan, thank God, even though he learned to play guitar and wrote songs, also could play the drums. And so he'd bring the bongos out to the cabin. So one night when people were home from college, their first or second year, maybe their first year of college, we just hung out and they came over to my house and we decided to play music, but I had everything set up in my room. And so just as this or anything else seems to happen surrounding this group of people with me, there's an understanding that, it might be recorded.
I don't think listeners understand. There was like a decade of my life that I carried a camera with me just everywhere I went.
Really?
And and you did, and Jacko did, and Prams did, and there was always things documenting what we were doing, like whether it was photography or audio or
well, and we were there's an interesting thing I was thinking about, because I did just finish creating a digital version of that photo book that we made on paper and like copy machines and stuff back in 1998. And there was there's a scene in the documentary that of course exists about the making of said book. Of someone we don't have a nickname for, who even listens sometimes. I don't know if he's hearing this now, but he's writing something in the video. And I remember seeing him writing in the corner of the hotel room hotel conference room that we'd I don't know, what do you call it? Rented? Like, we didn't get a hotel room to sleep in. We got a space that we could be in overnight, that we could do this work, quote unquote.
That they were not willing to let us do twice.
No.
Like,
they're like,
what did we do that was so terrible? That's what I don't understand is like.
I don't think we necessarily did anything so bad. I think it was just so unorthodox for someone to rent out. Like, I think that's like where people had their continental breakfast or something. Like, like I think it was not a hotel room that they would have. I don't know. Yeah. So, but anyway, we were there overnight, like going through all these photos and trying to make this book. And our one friend was sitting in the corner writing about what ultimately turned out to be him saying, like, this is such like horseshit. Like, you guys are just egomaniacs. What? Like, why is this important? And so I remember I just saw him writing in the corner, and it was a period in my life where I had always been a creative person, and I was suddenly encountering all these other creative people, and it was so exciting to me that I just always encouraged that. So I saw him writing in the corner. I'm like, can we include that in the book? He's like, well, sure, but I'm not so sure you'll want to.
Oh, yeah.
Because ultimately he was writing about like how he felt, which was like, these people are what? And I can totally see that point of view, but at least speaking from one of the people so excited to make that book, it was not, it's not that we think it should be important to other people. It's important to us to have this exist. and so we can personally remember. And, so I mean, to this day, like from 1995 onward, my life and my creative endeavors are ridiculously chronicled and will continue to be so, just because I don't know how else to process my own life.
Well, and it's a craft that you just like hone and you just do. It becomes just, I mean, at this point, it's just something that you're used to doing.
I found it to be an interesting and very unique way of acquiring self-knowledge. So I know myself in a different way than other people would because of my experience doing these things.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like, I value the experiences that I've had and the people that have been involved. And I don't necessarily think that they should be important to others, but I've recently like really just embraced like that doesn't bother me. That whole point of view from this friend of ours in the corner is 100% valid. Like, who cares? The answer to that is
Right.
like literally I care, and I'm just making this for myself.
Right.
So I've come to embrace that in a way that I acknowledge that it's odd, for sure. But I'm pretty happy about it. Anyway, I'm glad all this stuff exists and I'm able to look back. And when we say like, where did Steve come from? It's like, not only can I posit my own opinion, but I can put forth at least 3 others because of this documentary that I made in 2004 that was filmed in 2000. You know, it's like, it's ridiculous, but pretty awesome to me. Woo.
Absolutely.
Oh my heavens. Well,
let's listen. Let's get rolling on this book club. All right.
I think it's high time.
We've teased the listeners enough.
Yeah, and this is a epic week. Oh my God.
Man. Epic week. This was a huge, I mean, I texted you earlier today. Like this was a huge section of the book. But before we start, one more tease. Let's talk about how this book club is possible. Hey, Palmer here. Dave and I are so excited to be doing this Long Walk Short Drink Book Club reading of The Dead Zone by Stephen King. Materials for this project were provided by the site bookrags.com. With over 6,000 study guides available on their website, bookrags.com has everything you need to study and ace your lit classes. Enter the promo code PODCAST to get 15% off your subscription. Thanks so much to the great people over at bookrags.com for helping to make this book club possible. And then when the first one's done, it'll go and then into the other one. And then that'll be for audibles. And then and we are back. Thank you so much to Book Rags and Audibles for making the Dead Zone Book Club possible. We greatly appreciate it.
Let's do a kind of live read for Audible. I don't know where I'm getting this, but every example I found, nobody does a pre-roll that's canned with music. That's why I've always made a point of doing that. So let me send you this, and we'll just tag team it.
Oh, all right.
But I will say on the shows that I listen to that do this, it is fun because they say that thing. It's like, well, nobody knows your audience as well as you. And I feel like our audience is used to hearing me fuck it up. And that's part of it. So that's the idea as a live read of it all.
Wait, should we do it right now?
Yeah, we could. Book Rags also, though, for you, the listeners of Long Walk Short Drink podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service.
I personally recommend the audiobook Long Walk. Or no, wait, that's our podcast.
Oh, there will be a Long Walk Short Drink audiobook.
No, that's
King.
And I would recommend that. However, in the meantime, until that audiobook is available on audible.com, I would recommend downloading The Dead Zone by Stephen King, where you can follow along with us with our previous episodes and this one that we're about to start, our discussion of The Dead Zone by Stephen King, read by none other than James fucking Franco.
I think that is his legal middle name.
Yeah.
You could download that book or the free audiobook of your choice at audibletrial.com/LWSD. Again, that's audibletrial.com/LWSD for your free audiobook and free 30-day free. Fuck, see? God damn it. Trial. Yes, trial.
Really? That's where you picked it? Was on trial?
No, it's like I said free seveble times. I was pretty excited about that.
Oh. Well, it's a free book, a free 30 days. That's a good deal. Audibletrial.com/LWSD.
Easy for you to say. All right.
LWSD.
LWSD.
Double D.
At LWSD Pod on Twitter.
And LWSDpod@gmail.com for those of you not on social media. God bless yourselves. Let's talk about
you fucking beast.
zone.
That's awesome.
Ow!
Wow!
Yes!
Wow!
He's on fire!
Dead zone. It's in the dead zone.
That was my favorite thing about editing 24. I lost my mind when you did that. Like, I did laugh out loud. Like, it was late at night. I'm watching, like, I don't know, I think I was watching Pearl Jam 20 on mute with the subtitles on, and I heard you suddenly go, yes! It's on fire! Oh, it made my night. Oh, man. The bride is telling me to keep it down.
Wow!
She's always telling me that. But I can't help it sometimes.
That's what she
You
said.
know what I'm saying?
So do you want to give us a little recap on where we left Johnny
I thought
Smith?
about that, but I don't know if I successfully can because I was trying to figure out where that was.
So we ended, actually, chapter 14 ended at a really critical juncture. Chapter 14 ended with the interaction between Greg Stilson and that banker.
Oh, yes.
Where he needed to prime the pump with 50 grand, and he was blackmailing that guy into raising that money so that he could start his campaign, basically. That's where we left it. So then we come into chapter. Now we're on the third assignment was chapters 15 through 20. And the three guiding questions that we had for that section were discuss the Castle Rock Strangler. How does this, if at all, prove a purpose to Johnny's gifts or abilities? I said. Let's see here. Johnny continues to suffer shortcomings, suffer loss and shortcomings. Do you think it's because of his opposition to an external force? So, if his mother were to be believed, there is a purpose for all of this, and which Johnny does not buy into. So, is his continued loss and troubles because he opposes that? And then the last guiding question for this, the third reading assignment, was at the end of chapter 20, Johnny has a vision. Relate this to other parallels between the events in the books and current events. So which now we're really getting into the nitty gritty where we get to talk about those things. So
I need to borrow some sweets. Chancho.
These are the Lord's nacho.
I honestly love that movie. And I made my nephews love it too because they're required. I'm so surprised at what they remember. And they remember, like, in 2008, me making them watch Nacho Libre when they stayed over.
And they liked it though, right?
Of course. I mean, it's better built for kids probably than grown people, but
right.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a great. I love, like, there was that came out around an era of film where there was just a lot of mainstream fairy tales, like where the movies were just too pretty to be reality. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I never thought of it like that.
I don't know. Like the color palette and the sugariness of the stories, and just they were just a little bit too much. Like I feel like that's in the cusp of that. Or like Big Fish.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Like that is a literal fairy tale. But all of those like came out around that same time.
You're right though. That was you don't see as much of that right now. As much as I love these superhero movies, that's kind of it. Right
yeah.
Now. I mean, and things that are the equivalent thereof.
Things that should not be superhero movies are being turned into superhero movies, you know, like the fucking Baywatch movie, which looks hilarious, but it's just like
I mean, there. That's exactly it right there. That's
there it is. That's Palmer's review of Baywatch the movie.
So let's get to the book club then.
Yes, sir. So where do you want to start? All of this is really rich and ripe for discussion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the chapter 15 starts right out with, I'm really leery of the, you have to stop me if I start sounding too misogynistic. I do not have a problem with Sarah because she is a woman or because she does quote unquote womanly things. She's just greatly irresponsible at the beginning of this book.
Emotionally irresponsible, I think is the thing.
I kind of even, I came up with this thought of like the person who has the most to lose in a decision between two people, like that happens at the beginning of this assignment, chapter 15. Whoever has the most to lose, it's their responsibility to make the right decision, because the person who has less to lose is going, like, they're more likely to make the poor decision. Right. So Sarah, it's Sarah's responsibility to keep what happens from happening, because it's just unfair. I understand that King is trying to write it as this romantic subplot, that it is tragic, tragic romance subplot, I should say. But it's kind of like this payoff, like the book rag summary even says, like, the way they have it written is really funny. Where it's like they agreed to have the night that they never got to have, or they both feel that it is right to take back the night that they had planned to spend together. And
that's right. I forgot that they agreed to that on the night.
And it's just grossly irresponsible and just so unfair to Johnny, who I mean, I guess tries to, like, acknowledges that they both agree that they can't see. I think it's even worse when he starts talking about how when Herb comes in, and it's almost like Herb is like enjoying Sarah's son as like the grandson that they would have had if they would have ended up together, that
was bizarre.
And that it got really weird. Like, and I'm just like, it was just so irresponsible. And just, I thought, like, I mean, again, way to go, Stephen King. Like, that's, you write so well that you get this emotional response where I'm just like, this is sickening that this poor man is putting himself through this. Like, why would he do that?
Yeah.
So
I remember thinking, like, when they were talking, when Sarah would come up and stuff in the Johnny's still in the hospital, and he's trying to, for him, he just woke up. And so, like, a minute ago, she was his girlfriend, about to, they were going to go home and, get intimate for the first time that night of the carnival.
Get sex crotch. They were going to, they were going to go home and get sex crotch.
Yeah. They'd kind of like had not a handshake on it, but they're like, all right, like, this is what we're doing tonight. And, and then in between that, both the Wheel of Fortune thing came up, where Johnny had this incredible string of luck, quote unquote, because he could see the future essentially at the Wheel of Fortune. And while that's happening, Sarah's kind of getting sick, ostensibly on a bad hot dog, but maybe from, like, the mystical whatever that's going on with Johnny. And, and she gets sick. And so they go home, and then she's sick, so they don't, do the business. And he calls a cab, and then that cab wrecks, and he's in a coma for 4.5 years.
Yep.
But,
which in that time, she ends up meeting another man, getting married, having a child.
Yep. Yeah. And in that time for Johnny, like, he blinks, and has surgeries, and to him, that's still his girl, but he has to come to terms with the fact that she has moved on. And so that's, I think, what you're getting at, where it's like the kind of burden is on her to be more,
Right.
to be the bigger person in some ways. Like, but
Right.
you hear a lot of it from
Because
Johnny.
what does he have to lose? Like, he's just,
Yeah, he's got nothing. He's got Herb, and then his mom dies shortly
Right.
thereafter. His
Right.
dad and his mom.
I mean, so he has nothing to lose in this situation. In fact, in a way, he thinks it's something that he deserves, even though I'm sure he knows it's just going to torment him. And in a way it does, you know. I don't know. It just, man, it was just like a punch in the nuts. It was bad.
No,
like,
I did not see it coming. Like I understood the idea that they, from the foreshadowing of it all, that they would be somehow in each other's lives going forward in the story. But I just foresaw it as some kind of unfortunate missed connection, but that they would somehow be connected. So like I have this thing written down where she says, actually, just to back up a little bit, I have this note about, because it, from the point where Sarah's husband, Walt Hazlitt, is that the name? Like,
yep.
He's this kind of guy that's up and coming in the Republican Party and kind of kissing ass and trying to make headway for himself. He's talking about when Johnny first makes a splash in the news at the hospital press conference, where he inadvertently kind of gets exposed as this psychic phenomenon. You fell, but
phenomenon.
Yes, no. That's a multi-layered, but
yeah, Phil, not
right.
Phil my ass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This one thing, this one appearance in front of, reporters, exposes his power, causes his mother to have like a stroke, like it causes great ripple effect. But Sarah's husband, Walt, is saying like, I think he's wise to capitalize on this and try to make a buck while he can. And Sarah immediately, like, there's just like huge divide between her and Walt in that moment. There's like a line drawn in the sand. She's like, whoa, Johnny Smith is not a liar.
Yeah.
And you sense this, it's a monumental moment in her character where, like, I had this visual of her being especially physically expressive. Like, I'm sure she wasn't necessarily expressed in the book, but like she had her hands on the edge of the table, like, and was kind of possessed by this, I don't know, like Vera, Johnny's mom, the religious zealot, would be so steadfast in certain things. I pictured it as that kind of dividing moment, and it's where Walt couldn't say anything bad about Johnny. So I have this other note that moves into our current assignment or discussion, where it says Denny had his father's Republican sensibilities, his standoffishness, which Sarah said in a letter to Johnny, which kind of distances herself from her husband and her child a little bit.
I almost feel like from the beginning that Walt is introduced, which, I mean, that scene is, there's only a couple instances that he's you even hear him talking in the book. And that scene is the major one, which is really uncomfortable. That scene is super, super, super uncomfortable. Both narrators nail that scene, actually. That is one that I will give to the female narrator in the other version of the audiobook.
Yeah. I can see I think that's an interesting choice to have a female narrate the book. I don't know how much Sarah comes into play later, but in those scenes especially, I can imagine it was helpful.
I feel like he's what she's supposed to do. I feel like that's like, she's grateful to Johnny because he bridged this gap where she thought she would never feel right about men after that oppressive boyfriend.
Yeah.
And Johnny was able to show her, like, not all men are slime.
Right.
And then, but like, even in those even in the years that like Johnny's in a coma and they're doing that great time progression. And I mean, she reluctantly goes on a date with him because it just kind of feels like she should move on from Johnny.
Yeah.
Right.
In the same way she felt that way about the bad guy before. Dan.
Yeah. Right? And it's just very her thinking is very formulaic. It's very like, well, I should do this. And then she just does that.
Right. You know, what's interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You were saying before about like this certain, don't let you fall into misogyny because of this certain female trope. But I think that this has never occurred to me before. So I hope it doesn't derail you too much, but I didn't want to forget it. There's the trope of like the nice guy finishes last in terms of romantic relationships.
Yeah.
And maybe Johnny's falling into that category here. But there's also that trope, and doesn't really play into this book, but I think it's something that is the flip side of that coin, which is the girl in Chasing Amy, or All the Real Girls. It's like this woman in your life that helps you. So for men, what is it? So like for girls, it's this like the trope is that it, you know, in heterosexual relationships, it's that like bad guys, the bad boys are not where it's at. It's like real other guys, quote unquote, nice guys.
Right.
But for the flip side of that heterosexually for men is that there are these women that come along to show you what like quote unquote real women could be, or not a certain stereotype. You know, like there's like, oh, you're the woman who taught me how to love. You know what I mean? Like, but that's not the woman you end up with. It's this weird, like this weird flip of the bad boy thing. Like, so it's literally the opposite because a lot of times it's like the bad boy, you have a nice guy to realize the bad boy is not where it's at. And then on the other hand, you have this kind of quote unquote bad girl, maybe, or someone outside of the norm that gives you the sense of what a real meaningful relationship can be, but you don't have that real lasting meaningful relationship with that woman. You know what I mean?
Right.
It just occurred to me for the first time, like in my life, that this is the flip side of that coin in this equation that I could never quite put my finger on.
That's what he said.
We're not seeing that in Sarah. Sarah is the nice girl. Johnny is the nice guy. And their time didn't quite line up.
I didn't want to come off as the, like, for the misogyny thing, I didn't want to come off as like, oh, what a manipulative bitch just because she's a woman. But I think there is a certain level of her, like it is kind of shitty that she's just like, I feel like it's like getting her cake and eating it too. You know, like she shouldn't get that. She shouldn't get to have that moment with him because she got those 4.5 years of her life. Like she got to live that.
Yeah, and make the choices to marry Walt and have this kid.
Right. And like all of that got taken from Johnny. And that's where I mean, like, it's her responsibility to say, no, we should not do this.
And I feel like Johnny was trying to maintain the appropriate distance too, right? Like it seemed
until, because this picks up like it picks up right after that man from Inside View leaves.
Oh yes.
And he's like pushed, like, so he's pushed over the edge. Like the bug was already in his ear. And that's the other thing too, is like, I do feel like she kind of manipulated all of this. And also where I could make the argument that I don't think that I think that her marriage to Walt is a marriage of convenience. And that's it, is like, they're not intimate ever. And she does a lot of this time away from him, I feel like. But like she writes to Johnny and says, hey, I'm going to be visiting a girlfriend that's pretty close to you. But I think like her intention is like dripping with, because I want to fuck you. That's that's probably way too harsh. Like,
well, no, I do think that is the root of it. Like ultimately that's what it comes down to. What I wrote down here, she says, She said what she's talking about, what happened to them is a bad hot dog, an act of God. All I want is what was taken from us. I want everything tonight. It's wrong, but it ... and I have like notes like look up everything. And then I have this note of like, what the fuck does Tabby think of this? Like, what does Stephen King's wife think of this appraisal of this woman and her intentions? That's all I could think of at the time.
I don't know that. So that's where I start to be like, she's kind of shit. I mean, because of course he doesn't have anything to lose. So he's just going to fall. Like if she literally gives herself to him and he without question is just like, yep, I'm doing this.
Yeah. That makes all the sense in the world for him. Like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's where it's her responsibility like that. And she totally biffs it and loses all of my respect. She's super clear about that stuff. Like by the time she comes to visit him, the same as the tabloid guy does, like her intentions are to get that night back. It's a little surprising as a reader where to me it was at least that you see that there is this allegiance to Johnny. She doesn't like when her husband talks bad about him. And I don't know. I was really caught off guard by that, to be honest. Yeah.
Yep. I was like,
I hear you.
And I talked to you about it right before listening, and you're just like, "Fuck, Sarah," indicating that she was going to do something wrong, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is that." And then it is, it's really fucked up. Like
it's really fucked up because like Johnny does exactly what any person I'm not even going to say any person in that situation would do. And I really feel like she took advantage of that position that he was in to get her cake and eat it too. And that I lost all respect for her. Like that's how great of a character though, that she's like, that's how well she's written, that it was able to affect me that much. And I was like able to lose that much respect for her.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of, I don't quite know how to move on from it without doing so bluntly, because it's like, what is you mentioned in some of the great questions, like these leading questions about how is this significant? So I have to wonder, as someone who, I mean, there's a lot of amazing shit that we're going to talk about that happens in this section of the book, but I have to wonder, like, why does King put this whole thing in there to the greater end of like the ultimate end of this story, the final episode of Alias that
so I want to put a pin in that. That's a great, so can you make a note of that? Of that question, like why would King put this in here?
Because you've asked that about other things, about the brutality earlier on, and that stuff has become apparent.
And I have a theory about that. Well, I mean, we don't have to put a pin in it because this isn't going to be that big of a spoiler.
Okay.
I think he wrote it in as like this is like a pittance of a payoff for this poor man. Like he's had everything taken from him, and he's going to have even more taken before the end of this book is over. And I think this is the one opportunity to kind of give him something back that he lost. You know what I mean? Like I just as like a token, like, it can't all be terrible. Like there has something to like some good for him to hold on to. And I think there's other nuggets of good in his life. I like his father, Herb. Oh, Jesus. I love like that. He's a man's man, but he's like a dad's dad though, too. Like he's just a great father. And, this is in this section too, like we get introduced, he's like starts working contracted for a widow. So
he's like the kind of dad who like get invested in the kind of books your son's like, or maybe put your other son in an arm bar. Like,
yes, absolutely. He's just like just a dad's dad, and but there's those nuggets of good, and I think that's what this was this because and this is something that I'll task just you with, because it guaranteed we'll be able to come back to it in the conversation the next time. But I really feel like after this scene, Sarah does pop up a couple times, but it's that whole arc is this is like the end of that arc, essentially. So in my opinion, she's still a presence in the story, but it's not anywhere near as heavy as it was leading up to this scene.
Yeah, it's interesting as I think about it. Like when that scene happened, I was shocked, and I was thinking about it in terms of what you had set up in terms of her, fuck that person and all this, and she's doing wrong by him. But when I did think about it, or as I have thought about it kind of later, and as nothing else, no further interactions has come up, I kind of thought about it like, not so much in terms of how does Johnny have to deal with this moving forward and not having her in his life, but kind of if you think about it, like, well, if that's the case and he woke up from a coma and that this doesn't get to be his life, he also gets to have his cake and eat it too, in a way. Like, like that's a little win-win situation, but a very strange one. Like, so part of me is really bothered by it in terms of she's married. And so I'm married. I wouldn't want my wife to do that. And so that part is very troublesome on that level. If you think about it from Johnny's point of view, like he knows that she's married, he knows that it's wrong, but she is so incredibly specific and clear with him that I don't think he would necessarily have guilt about it because of how specific.
And again, like he's only like what, a year out of waking up at this point.
Yeah.
So like he's still like close to her. Like, like he's still like, in his mind, she is still that girl. Like that is something that I don't think ever changes in his mind. Like he's still his girl because that's what she was before he went in the coma.
Yeah. So it's interesting in a way, like to us at an overview, it seems awfully wrong, but individually, if you take apart the side of her being married and cheating on her husband, who we don't really like as readers.
And it's, I don't think like can even factor into it. We are literally given just enough to know that he exists. There's no character like for all the other characters in this book, even Dr. Wyzak, like we get character development for him, but we get just enough exposition to know that Walt exists. Everything.
I feel though it is there is like King puts his perspective on it, and that that the kid has his father's Republican sensibilities. He's standoffish. Like I think there's a judgment call there that he imparts to his readers, which you and I may be in sympathy with that, whereas other readers might not be. But so there's like just enough that he exists, but also that like he's a kiss ass and a two face. And
he does. You're right. He does choose to only kind of highlight the more scrupulous portions of his personality, right?
Yeah, or the less scrupulous, right?
Less scrupulous. Oh yeah. Sorry, geez.
But no, yeah. So that definitely seems. Yeah, that's like all we get of that. So I hadn't thought about it, but I guess you have the insight to say that that's kind of the end of that chapter in Walt's life, and or rather, Johnny and Walt's life.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's move on from that because we got a ton to talk about. Like the next chapter, we basically get, this is just essentially to let us know that the man from Inside View who sparked all of him hooking up with Sarah, basically, uses Inside View to essentially defraud, Johnny.
Yeah.
And it really libel him because it's not, is libel the right way to, because that's print, libel is print, right? And slander is speech.
That That sounds right to me.
So because it's all fault, like we know he has these powers, but they go out of their way to like really just be shits about it. And to the point that him getting all that mail and all of those artifacts to touch, you know, like that quicksand scene we talked about.
Oh yeah. Oh, he gagged a little.
Oh man,
that's what happens if you're in quicksand. You're gonna ingest the sand.
So, but it's like a mirror image of that, because then it flips to like hate mail and borderline threats from people, like you know. Which Johnny is totally okay with that. Like he's like he feels like this is the best thing that could happen because he didn't like any of the attention he was getting.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. That's so interesting too. Like you talked about how things would be different or the same in previous assignments or discussions about this. With social media and stuff, I think it all would be exacerbated, but pretty much the same, you know?
Yep.
Like with the media part of it, it's just that it would be more like,
accessible. I think that's what like you talked about, making worlds smaller. I think it would just be instead of him getting it from the 3 million people that read Inside View, getting mail from those people, he could be getting it from around the world. You know, if it were to happen to today. You know, so. That's something to that's exactly it. So
I think that's human nature is the same. It's like that all would happen in pretty much the same way, just on a different scale.
And which that just gets into it's just great that it's why books like this can still be relevant today in more ways than one. So,
I sort of feel like too, like, do you think that this book was out of audio circulation for quite a while? Do you think that it was republished? Because I was looking at the timeline in our current political landscape.
I am telling you right now, like wait until you get to the end of the book. Like we're going to talk about some of the correlations to now, but just wait until you get to the end. The last assignment, it gets so much thicker.
Oh my God.
So
I can't even imagine. It's so thick already in what we're about to dive into.
And it's just, I totally believe that it is the results of the 2016 election are relevant enough to have caused this to have been re-released. And I think James Franco read it because he stars in the 11/22/63 on Hulu. So they adapted that novel on Hulu, and he's the main character in that.
That makes sense.
In this section is where, it's we finally get to see Stilson and Johnny interact, or at least.
Holy shit! Yeah,
their paths finally cross.
Yeah, that's the end of the run, but that's where we're going.
Well, even sooner than that. But I'm just like that's the stuff that where if we want to make correlations to today, that's where we really want to try to get to. So
sure, that's the end of the assignment, like the end of the the end of the period we're talking about. He literally that happens and Johnny passes out.
So, all right. So moving to get there, so we have more time to talk about that fun stuff. So he gets defrauded, but right after that, he finally, another story arc, it gets resolved in this section. This is like it's literally the third act of the book. It's like the climax, right? It's so
it feels like it. Yeah. What happens now?
It's like everything gets resolved. And so the Castle Rock Strangler story arc finally crossed paths with Johnny. So this is where he gets a call from the sheriff of Castle Rock, and who was given his number by Dr. Wyzak, which pisses Johnny fuck off.
Right, like he has the betrayal, not really a betrayal, like a sort of positive betrayal of Sarah. Wanting to fuck him, but but then this thing of Dr. Wyzak, who's been his like friend and doctor, giving him he's furious about that.
Furious. And because my note I have here is like Dr. Wyzak versus Vera, like versus his mother. It's like Dr. Vyzak almost like takes up this mantle of like, you have a gift that you should use. And Johnny even you know what I mean? Like you have a gift that you should use. And because so the sheriff calls and says, we're at our wit's end. Like I'm tired of like following leads that don't go anywhere. I was contacted by Dr. Vyzak and I would love if you could offer any services to this case. Johnny freaks out, then calls Dr. Vyzak, and Dr. Vyzak says it and explains like, you know, I just thought you might be able to help.
It's a little girl, Johnny. Like I love the Wyzak that Franco does
accent,
but that thing where it is this like it's a little girl now who has been strangled to death, raped and strangled to death like a child, and it was literally we find out the sheriff's daughter was walking with this girl, or previously like it could have easily been the sheriff's daughter.
It could have easily been the sheriff's daughter, and which when it gets resolved on who the murderer is, makes that part even more chilling. Yeah. And also possibly why that girl might have been passed up and not.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Strangled, right?
For sure, that's why.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Because she passed through there before the other girl got strangled and murdered.
Yeah.
And so
I don't want to actually get into it, only to call it to the attention of readers who might have also noticed it, or people listening who might go back. But there's a Christmas tree scene. I don't want to get too deep into it, but that Christmas tree scene where like it's right after Johnny gets the call from the sheriff, he's furious. And he starts to think about the Christmas tree and the ornaments and like how his mom used to be alive. He has this kind of dialogue with his mom in conjunction with just looking at the Christmas tree and processing the idea that Wyzak had betrayed him. There's so much like impacted in internal dialogue into that scene that it's like I wanted to read the whole thing, but we got to move on. But that was I just remember thinking like, whoa,
go ahead, read it. Let's hear it.
Oh no, there's tons. Like it goes on and on, but let me find a bit of it, I guess. Like,
yeah.
Well, it's like he's looking at that thing and he's looking at the Christmas tree and the ornaments were still there hanging around to decorate another tree taken from the small back wood lot, and they didn't say more people wait, what the fuck? I don't know. He's looking at the Christmas tree and he's hearing like this like voice in his head of his mom. It's like, what a power God has given you, Johnny. Sure, that's right. God's a real prince. He knocked me through the windshield of a cab and I broke my legs and spent 5 years or so in a coma and 3 people died. The girl I love got married. She had a son who should have been mine and a lawyer who's breaking his ass to get to Washington so he can help run the big electric train set. If I'm on my feet for more than a couple of hours at a time, it feels like somebody took a long splinter and rammed it straight up my leg to my balls. God's a real sport. So it goes on like this.
I can tell you this level of self-reflection though is exactly how a teacher thinks. Like that. Oh. That is very, very. That's a teacher level of self-reflection.
Or a guy who spent his life making documentaries about himself. Like there's a certain.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
like we're a pair.
That's probably applicable too. Yeah, you're exactly right.
We're a pair, raggedy man.
So he decides. After that scene, that's what pushes him over. He decides that to go call the sheriff, right?
Yeah, I think it's that idea. Like just like you said, I actually had to put that together. I knew that Christmas tree scene was important, but I think it's for what you just said, where it's like Wyzak was, as his mom was inferring, that this power could be used to the greater good.
Right.
And Johnny was trying to come to terms with that.
Right. And I think that led me to this question that I had of he is still fighting, like he's fighting this calling.
Yeah.
If you want to call it that, or this power or this gift, he fights it. He doesn't like it. He doesn't want it to happen. He just wants to, like you said, he just wants to go back to teaching, right? Like that's just what he wants to do and like get back to a normal life.
It's the last temptation of Christ section where like the God as a Holy Spirit is like descending upon this person. And he's like, I just want to be normal.
Yep. And that's all he wants to do. And so, I wonder if there is a higher power that has this quote unquote plan for Johnny. Are these shortcomings and losses that he continues to suffer, are they punishments for him not accepting his fate, like not accepting what he's supposed to do?
I had this, it's funny you say that, because so much of what I write down is just things that resonate with me in terms of quotes. Very rarely is it a original thought.
Yeah.
But I wrote down light bulb. It's no wonder there's so much foreshadowing. It's a story about fate. Like there's so much in this book, and I don't know how much it'll come up in further Stephen King. You mentioned maybe a lot, but where he's like, well, that's he won't see Sarah for another 4 years until they make love, or like he'll like.
No, that's how he foreshadows. He punches you in the face with his foreshadowing.
Yeah.
There's no sugarcoating. It's just like there are times in the Dark Tower series where it's just like, and this was the last time that all of them were alive.
Yeah.
And that's how he ends a chapter. And you're just like, what the fuck does that mean? Like,
but like he did not do that. Even in the last book, in The Stand, like he didn't talk like that. He didn't foreshadow that way.
Well, and here's something that's also interesting. Well, I mean, that's because we're seeing him grow as a writer this early in his career. He's still finding and fine tuning, even though he's written his entire life. But as a novelist, we're seeing him refine that piece of his writing as a novelist.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Like this is what he's going to carry on, but it's the perfect vehicle for that, because it's this guy whose life seems predetermined, or who can see the future. Oh man, if this is the development of him as a writer and like a theme going forward, that's so extra exciting to me. That's cool.
But I was thinking too, like I have this book split up into quarters, right? And
did you make these distinctions, or did Book Rags?
These do not follow Book Rags has a 4-week. That's essentially the same thing. Like they have it go over. That's how I thought of it, is we were going to discuss it over 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But I didn't split it the same way they did.
Oh, your way has been great, dude. Really,
it's ended on like great, but
yes,
it's really close to literally the quarters of the book. It's like, it's within 7 to 10 pages of it being the numerical quarter split into quarters. And if you think about that, he has, I think it's you that originally told me this, and it was from the Cleveland Filmmakers, where it was a writer came in to talk about treatments and how, like, you know, a treatment is broken up into like 15-minute segments basically, and every 15 minutes you should have an oh shit or
oh my god, yeah, it's coming back to me.
You know what I'm talking about? Like you should have an oh shit moment, or you should have a
that's right,
aha moment, or some aha or oh shit.
Oh shit for sure.
every 15. Oh, I know oh shit for sure.
Wow.
And if you think about that, like so far the quarters of the book have ended on these like fantastic set pieces of the story. And it's like to know that he mapped that, like, I don't know if that was intentional, but that just shows like his skill as a novelist, even this early in his career, that like it has significant beats, like it's following like a beat to the pace of the book. Like,
yeah,
isn't that crazy?
It is
like
crazy. It works out really well. Like the way that you've divided these up as like listen to this or like read these many chapters at once. Like when they end, they come. It's such a logical like
yeah.
So very well done in demarking those.
And that was all a fluke. That was like I took how many pages my copy of the book was. Yeah, like. No, like
at this differently. It's like, I decided based on the arcs of the story.
I took how many pages my book was. I divided that by 4, and then I went to like the nearest chapters, like the nearest chapter endings to those quarters of the book, and then I happened to look at what ended each of those sections, and I'm like, this is fantastic. And it was today when I was thinking of that, where I'm like, that really says something about his pacing in the novel, that every like quarter of the book, it's ending on like a really like enticing beat where you want to continue on to the next quarter of the book, you know, like,
Yeah.
and then it's like just timed enough where like there's another really good enticing beat that you want to move on to the next quarter of the book. And I mean, that's to me, like that's, I'm sure it wasn't, didn't plan it exactly like that, but that's an inherent skill that there's a natural beat to his storytelling, a rhythmic beat even that happens consistently throughout the novel.
Yeah. This might be one of the first times he like really develops that.
Right. Right.
Going forward, because I mean, The Stand is like this epic sprawling thing, and it has divisions and parts. This seems to be like a new, you know, you kind of build from your early works, small stories like Carrie, Salem's Lot, short stories, and then suddenly you move into like The Shining, and then it goes to The Stand, and that's fucking huge. And then you like rein it in a bit and figure, how am I gonna structure these things if I'm gonna have to make one a year? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. It really,
It's
very effective.
While still improving my craft so that I don't get stagnant. Like that's, you know, like, again, because I have read from multiple sources that critics consider it the peak of his skill as a novelist. Like that's like, it's the best example of his skill as a novelist. Maybe peak is a bad term because that implies that he declines then after it, because there's great books that he writes after it.
Maybe he reaches a plateau of normality. I wrote that down from this book. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, not that the plateau is bad either, but how many novels after this is it? Like, how is it, like 6 years or something? It's like mid 80s or something.
So this came out in 79, and I think it came out in 80.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Let me consult my supercomputer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, because I'm already starting to look forward. It's like, okay, next is Firestarter, but I don't know what's beyond that. And
1986, actually, it was published September. So
knowing the chronology and realizing that this is him really coming into his own as not just as a novelist, but like as a guy, as a world builder, as we've talked about. Like, how soon does it start that things begin to overlap, or
I don't want to spoil.
collapse?
I can't answer that question, or else I might spoil something, because we still have a quarter of this book to finish up at the end.
Okay. So forging ahead, I have this note about so Johnny and the Strangler come into like conjunction. The sheriff calls him in. He's conflicted. Yeah. Eventually he goes there to Castle Rock, right? And
yes,
and agrees to help.
This is a great scene of this scene either greatly dates the book or does kind of speak to the naivete of Stephen King as a novelist this early in his career. Because there is no fucking way that this guy would be able to do any of these things that this sheriff lets this guy do. And if you know the fate, like speaking of universe builders, so Castle Rock is a town that shows up multiple times in Stephen King books and stories. Sheriff Bannerman, that's this guy, right? Sheriff Bannerman.
Oh, yeah. I didn't make note of him, but I sort of have this mental image of him, but I didn't catch his name.
So later on in Needful Things takes place in Needful Things takes place in Castle Rock. And if you read that, the current sheriff, some of the deputies names that you hear in this section are deputies in Needful Things that are like fleshed out characters that you get to like.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that so? Like, there's that. And then you find out that, and this isn't a spoiler because we're about to talk about this, the current sheriff at Castle Rock in Needful Things got elected sheriff when Sheriff Bannerman was ousted, basically, after how he bungled this case, the Strangler case.
Oh, shit.
And the Cujo case, because Cujo also takes place in Castle Rock.
Yes.
So
damn it.
Those two things led to him basically getting voted out of sheriff, like the post of sheriff.
Oh,
and then
that's
you
exciting.
don't find that out until Needful Things gets published, which takes place in Castle Rock too.
Very cool. This
So
is a non sequitur,
I mean,
but I
could
just
be-
realized in the video feed, for those of you listening, you can go to YouTube, find us on Long Walk Short Drink in the live streams. I never noticed
we
before.
have one viewer.
Oh yeah, hi,
It's
Moto.
probably Moto. Hi, Moto.
That really warms my heart that he's listening. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I never knew that your Dark Tower tattoo was on your left forearm.
No, right. It's on my right forearm.
Right. Sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at weird internet
Yeah,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've seen a picture of it, but somehow through all these, I never quite seen where it's located. I don't know why. I might even thought it was a thigh or something, or not a thigh, but a calf. That's fucking. I can't believe you would question your super fandom of the Dark Tower. That's what I'm talking about before. It's like this hard to be a fan. You felt you can't be a part of certain fandoms, and in episode 23, at least, you were the question like, I don't know if I'm a super fan. Yes,
No,
super
because
fan.
no, because you read like you go and you read other fans, like other analyses of those books. This is I'm sure this happens with any core group of fans for anything. There are certain levels, and there are people that I think I know those books. I think I have my own, because there's a lot of stuff left up to interpretation in those books. I think I have my own take on those that are all whatever. And then you read some of these other things, and like they know ins and outs and all of this stuff that I am just like, I'm never going to be at that level. So, I mean, I see that I don't see that tattoo as like a testament to my super fandom, which it's endearing that you do. So that's, I mean, I guess you're right. That does make me a super fan. I just see, like, I love these books. I put it on my forearm so I could see it regularly, you know, like, I just love these books, and I put it on my forearm. This is like the ultimate great t-shirt to me. Because like I put this on my forearm. One of the reasons it's on my forearm is so that people would ask about it, so I could say it's about this amazing set of books written by Stephen King by the Dark Tower that you should read. And it like I use it as like an opener. Like you would not believe how many times I've got to say that to people. Like it's like, what's that tattoo on your arm mean? And that's what I always get. What's that tattoo on your arm mean? Oh, it's from a series of books that I really like by Stephen King called The Dark Tower. You should really read them. They're amazing.
Oh, I can just see the episode for when we talk about maybe the first film or something being called the ultimate t-shirt or something.
Yeah.
So sorry for the, but like I literally never noticed that that's where it was on your body, and it's your commitment to this guy's catalog is staggering and existed parallel to mine. That's one of the amazing things about this podcast and our friendship and the time in which it's occurring is like I started to listen to Stephen King's catalog completely on my own last year, and you came to visit, and we hadn't seen each other in person for years. And I remember you standing in the media corner with like some of our episodes have been recorded there, where like all of my, films, not really, the fiction books are upstairs, and the nonfiction books are upstairs, but the film books are downstairs with the movies on the media corner. Right. But there's a lot of them, and and you're looking at stuff, and somehow it came up this like, I told you I've been listening to Stephen King, started with Carrie, and I was maybe like 3 books in. You're like, I've been doing that for 3 years, and I just like bear hugged you because I couldn't believe that I knew someone in real life who was as dedicated to that kind of a pursuit. more so really than I am. Like 3 years.
But
It's
again,
probably been 4 now, right?
do you
Oh
know
my
what's
God.
funny is that's I am a completist, and part of that though is because of the influence of the cabin and
Really?
you guys, like, and you know what I mean,
Oh,
like
I'm both.
and wanting to just have all of that,
Sorry.
and so like, and so I read the Dark Tower books, and I had read, Stephen King was an author that had come in and out of my life. You know, there were periods of my life where I really consumed a lot of his classics. Like there was a summer when I had dropped out of college, and I read like I read
when did
like
you drop out of college?
I spent a year where I didn't go to college during
What
my
year?
undergrad. 2002 to 2003.
Oh, all right. I was gone that year. Okay, I wouldn't have known
Yeah.
that because of that. I didn't know that. I literally never knew that.
But but over that summer I read It, Dreamcatcher, maybe The Stand
for the first time.
Yeah, but
Whoa.
like and in books I didn't do them in audio. Like I had a really shitty cube job, and so I just read a lot at that job, and so they were just big thick books that I could just get through, you know. And I had already read some Stephen King prior to that, and he just like ebbed and flowed out of my life. But then when I finally went through the Dark Tower, like the whole Dark Tower series, and I'm like, oh, this is where it's at. Then I started to find out that there were connections to other Stephen King books. So I would read those to get those connections. And then there was a distinct point where I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to need to read all of them so that I have all the connections. And I was like, and the way I want to do that is audio. And so then I ended up finding like a really good, I found a collection of Stephen King audiobooks, and that's what I worked through. And man, it was long. It's laborious, and I still probably have a year's worth of audiobooks to get through, like to consider myself done.
Yeah, to catch up.
Yeah. I think maybe either 11/22/63 or Under the Dome, whichever one was like published last. That's the last one that's how far I am. So anything that's come out, he's released the whole Dr. Sleep trilogy or whatever. Like,
well, Dr. Sleep.
Oh no, Dr. Sleep is the sequel to The Shining, right?
Yeah, but there is a trilogy, like Night's
There's a
Watch
trilogy
or
that he wrote. That's come out. Like I haven't read any of. Like I didn't even know those existed. So that's that. Like I have all that to get through still. So I mean, and I'm still going through that chronology.
Yeah.
4 years now, like 3 or 4 years, and
yeah. The thing is, like, I joke about it in terms of saying, like, how I wish I were consuming new things sometimes, but going through someone's chronology in this way is so profoundly rewarding. That, I hope someone else is inspired to do so by these conversations.
And because he's a universe builder, you come to this, you really love. I mean, yes, everything is tied to the Dark Tower books, but there are other books that are tied to each other. That, like, Dreamcatcher is tied to It. That's why I read those two back to back, even though they came out 20 years, almost 20 years apart from each other. But there's a connection between those two books, and you just really, that's another little piece of this particular chronology, which really makes it rewarding, is that he is very intentional about building in this universe and making those connections happen. And I think that really makes it rewarding. So
Fuck yeah. Well, and we're about to get to a place in this book where these differing trajectories are, like, they're converging. Like, so we've been introduced to Johnny and his life and his coma and his love and whatever, and we've been introduced to this guy who kicks a dog to death at the beginning that we fucking hate. Turns out to be this politician on the rise, Greg Stilson, and we've been sort of introduced in a way obliquely to this strangler, like this killer.
Right.
These are the three people who are following. And we're about to talk about where all three of these things converge.
And really, they all kind of like one kind of dominoes into the others converging, right? So, he meets up with Sheriff Brannaman, and it's really quick. Like it all happens in the same evening. Like he goes right from having dinner with him to going to the police station. Of course, there's fucking reporters there who recognize John Smith. He doesn't talk to him though. Doesn't want anything to do with them. But he ends up using his power essentially to solve the strength, like the crime. Like I love. So he goes. He's able to touch the bandstand that the crime happened in, which is the same bandstand that the first murder happened. Which is like Jesus. Like another reason why Sheriff Bannerman, like obviously, like. You're not doing your fucking job if you can kill somebody in the same place twice, you know, like.
Oh, I didn't know. I was picturing it as like this because I think I have these fleeting glimpses of the movie that I think I've seen, but maybe I haven't. Literally, all I can picture is walking in the navy pea jacket that they mentioned in the book.
Yeah, yeah.
And being kind of outdoors. I feel like maybe I haven't seen it, and I just thought I had. So you're telling me that the first murder that happened in the bandstand where the strangler chokes this, I don't know what age the woman is, but she's not a child. And this child that he kills.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the same place in this gazebo. I'm picturing like a gazebo that like crams.
That's the way I'm reading it. I could be completely off, but anyways, he's there. He touches it and he finds out he's able to tell who the murderer is. I just want to say, like, there's the moment where like they give him the cigarettes that they find. Yeah.
And he wants him to see what he gets from that. And he doesn't get much. And so that's like the little like gap between Johnny not wanting to be involved, Johnny like begrudgingly going to see the sheriff. Then he doesn't flash on the cigarettes. And then there's this moment where he's not satisfied with that. And he goes back to the sheriff and he's like, I want to go to the place. Like, I want to see this location. Right. And I have to say, as a reader that didn't know where this was going, I was really excited at that moment where Johnny kind of, I don't know, it was that he
kind of embraces the fate that he's supposed to.
Suddenly he's a man on a mission, and you're like, fuck yeah, like go get him, Johnny.
Well, it's like he even like after it's done, like doesn't he hear his mom? Like,
oh, I don't know. Yeah, so I go from there to that light bulb that I had about fate, but then I have so many frantic notes about when he does go to the location and he starts like digging in the snow and touching things and getting frostbite. And there's this whole like he/I thing where he is suddenly like he touches these things.
He's slick.
They transport him into the mind of the killer in a really, like these things are kind of a progression. And like his flashes, like he flashes on a doctor's or a nurse's son, like, yeah, he's going to be okay. But suddenly he says it in the foreshadowing, like about how powerful this flash is. I don't know if that's the right word about flashing, but like he absorbs all this information. He says it's only one time was it more strong. Like he foreshadows that in this moment, the author, Stephen King does. And by the end of this like section, we find out that other time. It's pretty intense as well. But yeah, all this stuff comes to him, and there are certain things he can't see. And I just have this like he/I, because he's like he's seeing it through the killer's eyes in a very specific way. And
well, even Sheriff Bannerman, when he tries to break the trance, he looks in his eyes, and Johnny's eyes are the killer's eyes.
Yeah,
like
I have this thing that says he seemed to be replaced by a quote human blank.
Yeah,
that I wrote that down.
And, so this happens, and then Johnny tells the sheriff who it is, and then this leads. I love this scene though between the two of them. This like back and forth and how Johnny, so he uses his power to solve the crime, and that's not good enough. And then Johnny gets to prove that he's also a very intelligent person and logically breaks down with the sheriff why he's right.
Oh yeah.
You
Right.
know what, like,
yeah. So Johnny
so-
Johnny intuits through this experience we're talking about who the killer is very specifically. He's
Yep.
like, and there's these interesting things like it's a dead zone. He can't see this. It's a raincoat, and then so there are certain things that his power reveals to him, and certain things that he can see through the killer's eyes. But then he does have to employ his own intelligence to say, like, to kind of put the pieces together. And then he puts the pieces together to say that it is this person that I think he's actually just previously encountered. Essentially, he's a guy on the police force who was on crossing guard duty that day.
And he crossed paths with him when he was coming into the station.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like,
this guy.
And so he tells like the sheriff, like, it's this guy. And to the sheriff, that guy is as close as that guy as the sheriff has to a son. And he's like,
he's like kind of embraced. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like decks him, like leads, like
that's right.
Leads the sheriff to assault a citizen. Like, yet again, this man should not be a sheriff. Like,
I have to say, I really appreciate that about like some of the human interactions here, like where,
yep,
like the sheriff decks him and Johnny gets hit, and then sheriff's like, fuck, I shouldn't have done that or whatever, and Johnny's like, I understand. Like those kind of human interactions really, I don't know, that I find a lot in there.
But I love this whole scene of where they're just like, they're going through, you know, Johnny's like, well, we have to check this and we have to check this, and they go through time cards, and they basically end up finding that all the murders that took place in Castle Rock, Frank Dodd was not on duty.
Yeah,
like
this guy that's like a son to the sheriff, and the sheriff's like, no, it can't be him. But Johnny's like, well, but can't it? And he's like,
and
can't,
so
you
they're
can't
like,
disprove it.
Well, that's not proof. And they're like, what about this time when there wasn't a murder? Well, where was Frank Dodd then? Well, he was out of the city. He was at this thing, taking a class in Colorado so that he could become a cop here. And so they call out to Colorado and ask, were there any unsolved murders that fit these circumstances? And there was one, which then at that point, it's to the point, at least the sheriff wants to go talk to Frank Dodd. And so they go back out in the snow and get to Frank Dodd's house and knock, and his obese, domineering mother. Like, this is an archetype that King uses a lot, of single mothers. And I can only imagine that it harkens back to him growing up with a single mother, you know.
What's so weird is, like, in his accounts, he always speaks so glowingly of his mom.
Right.
Which I guess is nice and honorable. But it's interesting that there are, like, what Carrie's mom, so many moms are so not cool to their, like, daughters and sons in his early books.
Yeah. But I think part of that is just, I think it's obviously like a caricature of, I don't know, those real relationships. Like, there are pieces of a parent and child relationship that just, I think he just like is trying to accentuate and shine the light on some of those pieces that sometimes are not great about those relationships.
Something that just occurred to me that may or may not be relevant at all is we never hear much about his dad. And I'm just thinking
Frank
about
Dodd's dad?
No,
or Stephen King's dad.
Stephen King's dad.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking about, like, Cameron Crowe's first directorial movie. So Cameron Crowe's a guy who has made some great stuff, made some stuff that doesn't quite work as much. But, like, if you think of one of his early movies, some of his early movies combined. So in Almost Famous, you get a kind of quasi autobiographical thing about him being this young prodigy. Like, it's a story of him that's in a way told through like a third person. So you get this kid that gets involved in like music journalism young and stuff. And you see his portrait of his relationship with his mom. But
Right.
if you contrast that or compare it to Say Anything, where there's a very smart young woman, excuse me, sorry, a very smart young woman who has not a lot of boundaries with her father. You can see autobiographically, Say Anything is really, Ione Skye's character is the Cameron Crowe character in the writer of that. And the father is really the mother, and that's in the real life version of that story. But so that's revealed through Almost Famous. So I have to wonder in a way, like maybe when he writes about a mother in a negative way in his early life, he's projecting that onto his father in some way.
Maybe.
I don't know. But it obviously comes from a real place, but it comes from a pretty consistent place of like religious fanaticism and I don't know what the word is, like
I just see it as this I mean, my mom was this way of like, that's my boy and I'm going to take care. Even Greg still wait, we're not there yet. Never. I almost gave a spoiler.
Oh shit, does he have a kid? Dude?
No.
Okay.
No, he doesn't have a kid.
Oh, okay.
But like,
but yeah, I do have a note about right before we get to the scene we're about to talk about. One of my few observations that are not literal transcriptions. It says both Johnny and Frank Dobbs had unhinged, mentally unstable, overbearing mothers, I wrote.
Yep.
And then like moments later, I'm like, well, Johnny makes this connection when he stares into Frank Dobbs' mother's smart, stupid little pig's eyes. And they reach an awful, perfect understanding when they touch.
Yep.
She knew. That's quotes. Yeah. She knew.
That's
the whole
what
time.
happened is she knew. She knew since the very first murder and helped him cover it up.
And she was the one that too, like when Johnny was like touching the things in the eyes of the killer, they talk about how he felt the pinch of the clothespin that the mother put on his penis as a kid.
The first murder, when you're actually getting the internal monologue of the killer, he talks like he even goes back to that scene about how, he didn't know what was happening. It just stood up on its own. And then his mom came in and put the clothespin on. Yeah. Boom.
She's like, you want to be like one of those dirty fuckers. And that's what like, that's what,
and all that sticks with him and turns into this thing. So they push past and go through the house, which turns out to be really creepy.
Surprise.
Like the fact that Frank Dodd still sleeps in his it's still set up like a 7-year-old's bedroom. That's his bedroom, It's really Norman Bates. It feels a lot like very Norman Bates. And so it ends with the last room that they haven't checked is the bathroom. And so then when they open up the bathroom door, Frank Dodd is in his raincoat that he always wore. That's how he was able to never have, they were never able to scratch him or anything because he was so slick because he wore his slicker, his rain slicker. So he's wearing his trademark rain slicker and had cut his own throat, which King even puts the detail in, Johnny would never have even thought that was possible, but slit his own throat and killed himself, knew the jig was up. And that basically reignites the whole fire of Johnny's gifts. And also causes the next plot point to move to the next plot point where his offer to come back as a teacher is rescinded because of the negative. They don't want the negative press to affect the school.
I thought that was such a nice thing initially that his old colleague was like, come on back and teach.
Yep.
That sucked.
And then he tells Johnny, he's like, you should really sue them because I'm pretty sure you'd be able to get every cent of your contract.
Incidentally, I'm for people listening, following along with the show, I'm reading The Making of Enter the Dragon. And
nice.
they have the telegram that's sent to Bruce Lee in Hong Kong, telling him that Warner Brothers will not go through with what they were calling the Warrior at the time, which eventually became Kung Fu. Basically saying like, we can't finance this movie or this TV show based on an Asian lead. But that eventually,
Wow.
like the guy like sending that telegram, cool guy, like who's talking to Johnny, says, but somehow, we'll find a way to work together. Fucking that became Enter the Dragon. And well,
that's
for Johnny,
awesome.
that became something different. But it's like, yeah, sometimes shit falls apart. But there are well-intentioned people behind it.
And honestly, though, without that, we wouldn't get to it wouldn't lead to the ultimate climax of the book, or at least from this part. So this cuts to Johnny basically escapes to New Hampshire. So he leaves Maine. He first gets a job as a short order cook, which leads to...
That was a little bit of a shock, but yeah. I was like, whoa, that sucks.
Well, he kind of goes like Bruce Banner, or not Bruce Banner, but
it is Bruce Banner.
Stephen Banner. It's
David
Bruce Banner,
Banner
but David Banner for the television
TV show. You know what?
Like he just kind of like goes on the road.
Why they call him that? I don't know if this is true.
No,
I heard. I don't know. So it's Dave. If you see like in the pilot episode, holy shit. Like when I did the Dave Diggs, I know it's not on this show. I did, like you said before, like I tried to choose things that influence my life. Like when you do top 5, it's like, these have to be things that like changed the way I thought, dressed, like acted, like really profoundly affected me.
Right.
The Incredible Hulk was in there, the TV show, because it did. And I heard at some point, so I'm very familiar with at least certain parts of that show. So the pilot episode at the end is that fucking glorious thing where Bruce, David Banner, whatever, he's at his own gravesite and he looks up and like half his face is his and half is the Hulk's, like in that case Lou Ferrigno. And that's like what sets the whole series off. Holy shit. But so on the gravestone it says David Bruce Banner. In the comics, as Marvel is wont to do, everything is alliterative. God bless him. Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, like that's how they fucking roll. And as it should be. But so what I heard is some asshat in TV land was like, Bruce Banner's too gay. So it has to be David Banner or something else.
Like literal gay, or just like, this is stupid.
It's hard to say because it's the 70s, but something like that. Like they thought it wasn't right, so they changed it. And so for me, it's weird. Like, I don't know, maybe you don't encounter this as much, but like, so I'm watching the Hulk pilot and like, you got the like female lead going, David, all the time. Like it catches my ear in a different way because that's my name.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, they changed it, but like it should be Bruce Banner, or David Bruce Banner on the gravestone.
So, but Johnny does David Bruce Banner it and hits the road. Gets the short order cook job. Yeah, like the piano playing, and he's like looking over his shoulder.
Oh, I can't wait to introduce that to the show.
Yeah,
he does. He's like fucking short order. It's like Werewolf in 1987. Yeah. That's a same Frank Lupo.
He ends up answering this ad for a tutoring job, which leads to him getting a really sweet gig. Tutoring one-on-one with a kid who has a reading deficiency for a really wealthy man who like lets him live in his like guest house. And
this is like the last group of characters that really influence Johnny, and a little foreshadowing there, but this period of his life really has an impact on the last part of the book. So
and it starts formally part 2 of the book.
Right. And this and so he's working with this kid. He's tutoring him. He's trying to help improve his reading, which he does start to do. He starts turning that around, which leads to, this is the first time that Greg Stilson and Johnny cross paths, because the man who hired him to tutor his son comes in to give him a $500 bonus for because they're making such good progress. And Stilson's campaign, which the last time we saw Stilson was him saying that we need to prime the pump. Oh no, wait. Did we skip over Sonny Ellerman's?
Oh, yeah. So Sonny intimidates, who's this dude? Warren Richardson.
So he badmouths Stilson in an article. He offers information to a reporter that basically sheds light on the shady real estate deals that Greg Stilson raised his money with.
Yeah.
Right. And so, which the banker alluded to, that Greg Stilson tried to intimidate, which, and all of these workings that all the way back to Sonny, think back to the first meeting with Sonny, who is just basically a thug, a biker. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Stilson says, just keep me in mind, because I'm gonna need work from you, and I want you to consider it when I offer it to you. And so then the next meeting we see with Stilson is with this young kid, and he intimidates that kid. And then the next one is the banker, and he uses all the same tactics on the banker. And then the next scene, which should be a Stilson scene, though, but who's Stilson's place now? It's Sonny Ellerman, because Stilson can't get his hands dirty now.
Right.
This dirty. He's called Sonny in from the ropes, from the dugout, from the bullpen. You're coming up. So, and Sonny does exactly what Greg Stilson, what we've seen Greg Stilson do. So he's obviously trained Sonny or mentored Sonny in these ways, these tactics. But it's basically, you should keep your mouth shut about people when you don't know all the information, especially if those people are running for office. And so, and that's essentially the message that he delivers. And he really ends he's like, it'd be really terrible if something, think about all the money you'd have to pay to a plastic surgeon if somebody were to throw a thing of battery acid in your wife's face.
Yeah.
Or think about
kid.
Yeah.
And the whole
think about
time
how terrible it would be if somebody just picked your kid up after kindergarten, on his way home from kindergarten, and so you see,
whole time he's he got his hand, the whole time he's talking to him, Sonny's got his hand on his
on the back of his neck, from behind.
Yeah. Basically, I could kill you right now. I could
turn you into a vegetable, but cut off your blood flow to your brain, basically.
And I wrote this thing down where I think this is what Richardson must have said in his internal monologue. He's his campaign, talking about Stilson, his campaign was an exercise in idiocy. Yep. And now strong arm tactics, talking about Sonny. No one could get away with this for that long in America. Especially not New England. And then he says and then, because of course he's being specifically threatened, Richardson says to himself, it's someone else would surely put a stop to it, right? He's it can't be me. I'm being threatened.
I'm there. There's too much. And so yet again, there's another parallel to current events that I feel that just this strong arming and this these shady tactics. Like,
and surely someone else will take care of it. Like that's
and surely someone else will take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing.
And
that
that's
the bride
what
hit me
let
too
it get to the
ago.
point. Yeah. And so there's that. And so now let's jump back to, this is the first time that Johnny's path and Stilson's path really cross, and it's over a television broadcast.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that Johnny sees Stilson, and Chad's dad, the man who hired him, basically like says like he's hilarious. Like he's the town fool. He's the village idiot, but he's entertaining.
Oof. Yeah. That fucking hit me in a big bad way.
Is that not like that's the first, I feel like the first 10 months of Trump's campaign.
Oh,
that's what people were saying, was like, he's not going to go anywhere. This is just, but it's entertaining. It's good. It's fun to watch.
Yep.
Look at our ratings. The more we talk about him, the more our ratings go up. Like,
I remember the bride's cousin, with whom we are very close and of whom I'm very fond, they don't have cable, so they literally can only like watch like ABC or whatever. And when all that was going on, like he would joke about it as like, this is like my news porn. And I remember feeling very strongly at the times like, this is not fucking funny. Like, it was never funny to me. And that's how Johnny felt. Johnny's like, is this guy a candidate? Isn't this a joke? Like, right. And there are times when Johnny thinks it's kind of funny, and granted, this is a story. Like, we're dealing with this in fucking real life. But I remember that very specifically. That was like a big thing. Like, people thought it was funny. I remember watching The Apprentice. I thought he was funny in The Apprentice, talking to fucking what dipshit or Brett Michaels or the other. Like, I like Brett Michaels as a celebrity cuckold or whatever. And, it's fine to see dipshit Trump like tell him he's fired, but like when that guy was up for actual political office, I was nauseous and disgusted from day one. And that's not to sing my own praises, that's just to say like, what the fuck is going on? And that like, and I think it's interesting with Johnny, because Johnny was asleep for 4 years, right? He wakes up, he's like, this is fucking going on now.
Yep.
This counts.
Well, and what's interesting is, this was the other parallel that I really just like floored me, was the speech that he sees on television is going over Greg Stilson. First off, comes up on the stage. He has a hard hat. That's there you go. So like, that's
not a red
his,
hat,
like,
but a hard hat.
Not a red hat. It's a hard hat, but it's a hat. That's his like linchpin, his icon, right? So there's that. He then goes through to talk about his planks, of his platform, the planks of his platform.
5.
And the 5 planks of his platform, one of which is to shoot all of the world's pollution into outer space. That sounds almost as lofty as building a giant wall that like between us and Mexico. Like,
yeah.
And
Superman 4? You're going to send the nukes into space?
Fucking A right. Like, and we all know how that ended.
Yeah.
So
Canon Films.
Canon Films. It ended with the Star Baby.
Superman.
Coming in and killing Superman. But so you have that speech really reminded me of, I remember it was finally in the point in the campaign that they had they had really pushed Trump into, you keep saying your plans, and you have given no solid anything. And he finally calls this big press conference and he's like, these are the 5 things or I don't know if it was 5, but he does this same speech. Like, these are the things. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And they were all ludicrous.
Yeah.
And
like, we're going to promise rain
up.
and shit.
And then
Stilson.
And then this was the coup de grace, and this is coming back to the book. Sarah eats a bad hot dog, which ruins Johnny's life.
Yeah, they don't get to fuck.
They don't get to fuck. Then while he's barreling down towards his fate of getting into that car accident, he gives this whole analogy about the 70s about how a whole generation of youth was fed a bad hot dog by somebody named Johnson. And then, so the solution to that was another politician named Nixon saying, oh, here, eat more hot dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Greg Stillson literally handing out hot dogs.
Yeah.
So it's like this analogy of like
his platform, right? He's like, fucking hot dogs
for everybody.
Hot dogs.
Yeah. And so it's like this symbolism of hot dogs for some reason comes back again of like this guy, obviously, like, here is a bad politician trying to feed more bad hot dogs to people and they're eating it up. So that kicks off this like new hobby of Johnny's, right?
Which actually had kind of started when he was a short order cook. He was saying like he had free time on his hands.
Oh yeah, yeah. So and it was an election year. Yeah, and it's a big
bicentennial election year.
Election year, yeah. On top of that, and so he starts this hobby where he essentially tries to schmooze and get a reading off of politicians. Like, as he's shaking their hands, he tries to see if his power will give him a vision, right?
Yeah.
And not very many of them do. But I love the Jimmy Carter scene.
Oh yeah.
It's very endearing. Because
like Jimmy Carter is the epitome of endearing in general. So
right,
like, that whole thing is very cool.
And so because he shakes his hand and he does flash, and Johnny's only words is like, "You're going to be elected president," and Jimmy Carter is like, "Yes, I do believe I am," and that's how it ends. And it's like it's really just sweet and endearing and nice. And so the gardener that works for the same man that hired him to tutor, Go.
That's very fun.
is going for his citizenship and is talking about how they're going to go to a rally. His class is going to go to a rally because Greg Stillson is New Hampshire. He's running for New Hampshire Senate or House, Congress.
I think House, basically. Right? Yeah. And Go is Vietnamese, which is kind of interesting in terms of
which is interesting. Yeah, the time period. But he's going for his citizenship, and his class is going to watch Stillson speak. And so Johnny has that weekend to himself and makes other plans. He wants to go watch a baseball game and like take a picnic lunch to a baseball game.
Yeah, I love that. I love that whole plan that he has. Like, I'm gonna pack 3 big, oversized like ham sandwiches, and a 6-pack of beer. Because Johnny is very often noted to be drinking like soft drinks. Like I'm grabbing another Pepsi. I'm drinking a 7-Up in the pool with Go or whatever. But like, so this idea that he's like, I'm going to go catch a baseball game. I'm going to hit up these bookstores. I'm going to bring a 6-pack. I'm just like, this sounds like the most perfect like bachelor weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's trying to fight this impulse to go see
to this rally, to go see Stillson. Yeah, because he felt something on that TV from that TV thing. So he tries to go to the game, and invariably, like fate or whatever you want to call it, his just random driving, whatever, leads him to the Stillson rally. And it's almost he does. I love his observations about the rally as well, because it feels. I don't know. I feel it feels like what I would imagine a Trump rally would have felt like just this energy, like this. We're ready to kick ass and take names energy.
Yeah,
and people not really knowing.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just like the girl with the watermelon and like just waving and like weird stuff and like the pool cues. Like there's this like this self-militant, like this self-patrolling going on in this at this thing.
Yeah, the pool cues being from Sonny and all the motorcycle gang that he essentially enlisted as his security.
Yeah,
I mean, it calls to mind like Altamont. It's like and actually not just it calls to mind, like Stephen King mentions it as fucking last time you had the Hells Angels as security, motherfuckers got stabbed at a concert. Like that's what happens. And that's the vibe that Stillson's putting out. But Stillson's also appealing. It's so ridiculous. Like he's got this fucking pro ecology like hat, hard hat. He's got this patchwork thing of things that he thinks people should care about, that of course none of which he gives a shit about, like the environment or jobs or whatever.
No,
the
it's
fuck.
power. That's all. All he wants is power. That's it.
And it's so reminiscent of, you know, another empty promised orange fuck that, like, that ultimately rode this fucking wave to the White House. And so like,
Johnny rides a wave of the crowd. And is forced to basically interact with Stillson. He tried all the way up until the point that their hands connect, because Stillson's going down the line and he's shaking hands, and there's a rush and Johnny's forced forward and his hand is almost put into Greg Stillson's. And this is the second time the Flash was this strong, right? Like which you alluded to earlier.
The other time with Frank Dodd.
And the vision that Johnny sees is not good. Not good at all. So
no. This is one of the few things I'd like to like read, actually.
Oh yeah,
it really hit me hard. And it goes on for a while, but I'll just read maybe the first paragraph of it because it goes on for some really visceral language. So suddenly it says, for Johnny had never been this strong. Never. Everything came at him at once, crammed together and screaming like some terrible black freight train highballing through a narrow tunnel, a speeding engine with a single glaring headlamp mounted up front, and the headlamp was knowing everything, and its light impaled Johnny Smith like a bug on a pin. There was nowhere to run, and perfect knowledge ran him down, plastered him as flat as a sheet of paper while that night-running train raced over him. He felt like screaming but had no taste for it, no voice for it. The one image never escaped as the blue filter began creeping in. Was Greg Stillson taking the oath of office, it being administered by an old man with a humbled, frightened eyes of a field mouth, trapped by a terribly proficient, battle-scarred tiger, barnyard tomcat. It goes on. It's like suddenly the verbal gymnastics like just like hit you in the face when these two guys touch. It is the culmination of everything, and it's like
it's literally the climax of the book. It's what the book has been barreling towards, this moment. And so he sees Greg Stillson becoming president. And he ultimately, I don't think it's as good. I don't think the book does as I would have to read it in the text to see if it comes right out. But the implication is that he leads then the U.S. to nuclear war. And the destruction of humanity. That's really
that's implied. Something like that is implied.
That's what happens. And so through his poor choices as the president, he leads the nation to nuclear war, which is not good for anyone.
No.
And that's where we're left, right? Like,
no, I mean, that's,
he's knocked unconscious by, like, Stillson knows something happened. Johnny obviously saw his vision. They know something's wrong, and one of the biker guys comes up and knocks Johnny out. That's
right. Yeah. Johnny gets knocked out by the motorcycle people. The one thing that I have this note about that we haven't talked about was what his the kid that he's tutoring, Chuck's dad, says to him, Chuck's dad is like cackling watching Stillson on TV. That's where Johnny first sees him. Like, Chuck's dad comes over to say, thank you to Johnny for helping his son learn how to kind of overcome his reading problem, which incidentally, it seems like Stephen King doesn't believe in dyslexia.
You have to remember the time period that this was coming out, though. Like, that's like that was probably a new diagnosis.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
And like an early understanding. And he also was a high school English teacher. So he would have been like adverse in that theory, in those like emergent theories of that time. So
I hadn't thought about that.
So I mean, maybe at that point in time, I'm just saying, like, throughout time, maybe in 1979, dyslexia was a new theory that just was not mainstream yet.
And he does this nice sort of mental ninjutsu on the kid, of where like the kid had these like built up expectations about reading proficiency and just sort of life, I don't know, achievements based on his dad's achievements, that made it so if Johnny could misdirect him into not thinking so much about his reading comprehension or abilities, he was able to perform better. And so the father that was employing him comes over to say like, hey, you're doing a great job with my son, I'm gonna give you this great bonus. Like, whoa, I got to see this on the news. And it's Stilson, and like the father is freaking out and laughing and thinking it's so funny, and Johnny's like, what the fuck, like this counts, like this is a real candidate. And he's like, yeah, it's fine, you know, he'll go in there and he'll be like this 2-year you know, politician.
And that's worst case, he says, and that's worst case scenario. That's even if the off chance he gets elected, like he'll go and spend his 2 years, he'll collect his paycheck for that time, and then he'll be done.
And then they'll elect someone else who's learned better the lesson. And he's like, what's the lesson? He's like, don't fuck people over for too long. That's the lesson.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit. Because that's like kind of our only hope right now as Americans, is that people realize like, so that's kind of what got us into this mess, in terms of a certain segment of the population feeling neglected, feeling fucked over, as though they weren't being catered to or listened to. And they're like, well, we'll just like grasp for any candidate that is anti-establishment, in the hopes that they speak in our best interest. When of course these fuckholes like Stilson or Trump are like, they just say anything. Like his whole like get up and his like stupid fucking hat and all these things, like it's completely empty. He's just appealing to what he thinks people will want to hear. And what's crazy is in 1979,
he looks at it all as ratings.
Yeah, that was unfounded. Like in 1979, this is just fantasy. But in real life, like in 2016, like this happened. It's
mind blowing, right?
It
like
really is. Yeah, and the way that this sort of predicts it is
I'm glad that you came to that. Like, well, maybe this being re-released on audiobook was not a coincidence. Like maybe, you know,
no, I don't think
there
so.
was some. I don't think there was, because I felt that way too. I felt that was. There are so many parallels that it made sense for this to get re-released. It's like Handmaid's Tale, you know, like the resurgence of that story.
Did you know that that's the bride's favorite book? And I had to read it when we first got together. Yeah.
I need to read that book. I haven't read it.
It's I can't. Cause they call. Yeah. It's like, I want to reread it and watch the series. But it is deeply disturbing, of course. So I wanted to mention, the second part of the book is called The Laughing Tiger. I was hoping maybe you had some better notes than I did about Go's assertion or observation that Stilson has a bit of the laughing tiger in him. You know, that there are a lot of characters.
And I got this from the book rag notes, because I was really having trouble piecing that together too. Essentially the laughing tiger, the whole point of the laughing tiger is, even though it's laughing and having a good time, it still is biting. And so no matter what appearance a tiger is putting out front, don't ever forget that it's still a tiger.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's
so
perfect,
like, even though like Stilson is like doing all these things to appeal to his constituency, don't lose sight of the fact that he's still a dangerous person.
Yeah, he fucking kicked a dog to death at the beginning of the book, and that's why we saw that. That's why King put that there.
Right. It like you need to remember like this what he's capable of, especially to things that stand in his way. So, that, yeah. So like, all right. So the last assignment, is going to be, chapters 21 through the end. There's an epilogue in there too, or author's note. I forget which one it is, but so chapters 21 through the end. And then here are the 3 questions to help guide your reading. All right. It starts roughly in chapter 24 and kind of roughly goes through the epilogue through the end. And it's not all the time, but he really King changes his narrative style. Do you remember the end of Carrie? How the last portion of Carrie is really told through like newspaper clippings and stuff like that.
That's
like,
totally like not stole, but very reminiscent of how Dracula, the book, is unfolded in diaries and in newspaper accounts and stuff.
Well, he picks up in chapter 24. He starts telling the rest of the book through this like mixed media like that, like where it's letters, it's newspaper articles, it's that kind of thing. So thinking of how he changes the narrative style that late in the book, why did he change? So what would be the reason, do you think, he would switch to the dominant mixed media versus the original narrative style? The implicit. So is Johnny's power a result of bad luck and evolution, meaning like his car accident undid some piece of his brain, that the damage to his brain creates the dead zone so he can't see everything, but without the damage he wouldn't have that gift at all, right? So is it that, or is it the hand of a higher power and fate imposing its will on a helpless Johnny? Like, so which do you think it is? And then the last question, your reaction question, and this is now that we have seen Johnny's vision, this will become a recurring thing in this last portion of the book. If you could go back and kill Hitler, would you? That's the last question. So
that's for all Tell 'em Steve Dave fans like listening. Yeah. That is a very common thread in the Tell 'em Steve Dave podcast that I like.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they come back to a lot. Killing babies and stuff. Yeah.
So that's that'll bring us through the end of the book. But yeah, thanks a lot for listening, sticking with us through another like 4-hour long conversation.
Yeah, we'll get it.
We did like hardly any bits, and we still talked for almost 4 hours. Like that's crazy.
I love it. I'm so glad to have had the conversation we had prior to the book club to introduce. Yeah, I fell to our lexicon, the Steve backstory.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I want to leave the book club listeners with these couple of things. I found it interesting that Go the other, what was Go? Sorry. What did he do there? Do you remember?
Oh, he was like the landscaper, the groundskeeper.
Yeah, the groundskeeper who was of Vietnamese descent, who told. I
guess if it's just a house, it'd be a gardener, right?
Oh
like
yeah. So he's telling Johnny about Stilson. He's like, there are many men like this in Vietnam. These kind of laughing tigers, as it were. And I thought about that a lot in terms of like despots and certain world leaders that, you know, are not what we would embrace in America as our ideals, but unfortunately sometimes can rear their ugly heads. But also this other note that Johnny associates Stilson with the quote pattern destructive madness of Frank Dodd. So like we've been fed these 3 narratives, like Johnny, Stilson, and the Strangler. And for Johnny, there's a strong correlation between the Strangler and Stilson, which I find interesting. And that Johnny at some point admits to himself that he collects handshakes and he's been looking for a wild card. Like this idea, like when he was the short order cook and going out to watch politicians and touch, shaking their hands and trying to kind of get a sense of things. Like this is after he helped with the strangler, and true that he wants to stay out of the limelight, but there's something in him that's like drawing him to the Stilson appearance and wanting to be of service, I think, in that same way. Like as a reader, you're like that thing where he engages after the cigarettes and he wants to get the killer. Like you want him to get involved. You want him to save us from Stilson.
Yeah, that's true.
And he admits to himself that he's been looking for the political equivalent of Frank Dodd. Like he literally says that to himself, or admits that to himself. So that's kind of what we're heading into in this last section of the book. And I'm so excited. Like I literally finished my assignment this morning on the drive into work, and I'm going to start my next one tomorrow.
Oh, that's great.
It's been very
exciting.
rewarding, this whole thing. So thank you for all the work you put into it.
I think it's been great. I'm looking forward, we obviously can't do this for every Stephen King book that we do, but
not until Stephen King himself pays us to make this our full-time job.
But I am definitely looking forward to like the next book club, because this has been great. So
thank you to Book Regs for providing some framework. Thank you to audible.com or audible.com, this service that if you were to go there, or Audible Trial, fucking hell. I was trying to think
audibletrial.com /LWSD. Get your free audiobook.
Thank you. I always think pod, but it's not pod.
No, get your free audiobook, LWSD. It's just /LWSD. For Long Walk, Short Drink, your podcast.
Yeah.
My podcast.
My podcast, too. You can download the Dead Zone for free, or whatever book that suits your fancy.
It should be the Dead Zone, though.
I think
that's
so.
The one.
I mean, after listening to all this, don't you want to know how it goes?
Yeah.
Don't we hear Franco read it?
Although, if you can get it for free, the narrator for it's really good, too.
Who is it?
I don't know. It's just somebody, but he reads it really well.
Oh, shit.
So,
that's coming up. I got to read Firestarter next, so.
Yeah. But all right, I'm Palmer.
I'm Dave. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking in with us. Thank you, Palmer, for putting us all together. This has been really fun.
No problem. Thanks, Mina.
All right, be well.
Yeah, you too.
Oh, I think I know where our viewer is.
Is it Double D?
No, it's Moto. He's like, dude, are you wearing headphones?
Oh. Is there an echo?
No, they're earbuds. He's like, I don't see him. Good man.
Oh.